Mr. John Mongela, who is the Regional Commissioner, Arusha, in the United Republic of Tanzania. We also have Ms. Ahuna Eziakonwa, who is the Assistant Administrator and Director, United Nations Development Programs, Regional Bureau for Africa. We also have Dr. Peter Mathuki, who is the Secretary General of the East Africa Community Secretariat. And we have the former President of the United Republic of Tanzania, His Excellency Jakaya Mrisho Kikwete.
Well, aren't we so grateful to have the big men and women in Africa in the house, and we'll be listening from them because they have the wisdom. And as young people, we have a lot to pick. Let's look at more of our guests today, this afternoon, as we discuss Africa. All right, we have Dr. Vera Songwe, who is the Executive Secretary of the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa. And also Dr. Songwe is going to be our keynote speaker today. And so we're really excited to have her today.
That's right. We also have Dr. Halima Noor, who is representing the Secretary General of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, the African Continental Free Trade Area. Man,
I know, yeah. I have that challenge too, trust me. Also this afternoon, we'll be very happy to hear from Dr. Joy Kategekwa. Dr. Joy Kategekwa is the Strategic Advisor to the Assistant Administrator and Regional Director, United Nations Development Program. She'll be speaking to us, and we're super excited.
Yep. And we also have Mr. John Bosco Kalisa, who is the Chief Executive Officer of the East African Business Council, also going to be here. And if you look at the screens on there, we also have representatives from the Gambia. And from the Gambia, we are going to be listening in from Mr. Mustafa Njie, who is the President and CEO, TAF Africa Global. There you go. And he's going to be telling us a whole lot more about African confidence.
I'll tell you a little bit about Mr. Mustafa if you just Googled him. He's a big name, quite a big name in West Africa. He's invested heavily in real estate, so we will be anxiously hearing from him how young people can tap into this potential. And so we're super excited to have him today.
Once again, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the inaugural Arusha Debates 2021.
So what are the Arusha Debates, Joy? And I'm sure everyone is wondering, what is it about Arusha Debates? What is it? Listen, it's going to be an annual event, just like you see the Davos, right? We're going to be congregating here to discuss African challenges and how we can pay attention and solutions to our own challenges, Joy.
All right, and speaking of what are the Arusha Debates, can we have the video play before we turn on our lights?
Certainly. All right, so as they are getting the video ready, Joy, I'll tell you that this has been really a lot of hard work for the team that has been here. But the reason why we're calling it Arusha is because Arusha is probably, what can I say? Can I confirm that Arusha is the capital city of East Africa? I know that Joy and I had that discussion yesterday, but even today before we came on air, and Joy was like, I'm not sure, but yeah, it could be because, I mean, we have the headquarters of the East African community here, but Arusha is certainly central for us here in the region, but also Africa as a continent. So let's watch the video to tell us about the Arusha debate.
For so long, the rest of the world has told Africa what her problems are and prescribed solutions to the said problems, but without honest examination of the suitability of such solutions in reality, what problems they solve, and with what results. The Arusha Debates is a purposive conversation on Africa's economy and how to shape it, bringing together Africans, young and old, experienced and novice, to discuss challenges the continent faces and the possibilities for solutions in a relaxed and inclusive way.
Arusha is in northern Tanzania, and it's fondly referred to as the Geneva of Africa for many reasons. Historically been the birthplace of the Arusha Declaration, but as well it has had a significant play in the region and on the continent and globally.
As you know, Arusha is quite a beauty, but also the intellectual capacity and the history. You may recall that in the history of African peacemaking, Arusha has played a significant role, being the destination for peace negotiations, for example, in the pre-genocide of Rwanda.
And is the right place for hosting the Arusha Debates.
Arusha is the destination for Arusha Debates because of its significance in African history and gifting.
For the Arusha Debates, we are hosting a lineup of diverse and experienced key speakers. Among them, His Excellency Wamgele Mene, Secretary General, the Africa Continental Free Trade Area Agreement, FCFTA Secretariat, Dr. Vera Songwe, Executive Secretary, United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, Mr. Mohamed Dweji Mo, President, MeTL Group and Founder, Dweji Foundation, Mr. Mustafa J. Youthman, Founder and Chief Executive, TEF Africa Global, Dr. Joy Kategekwa, Strategic Advisor to the Assistant Administrator and Regional Director, United Nations Development Program, Honorable Claire Akamanzi, CEO, Rwanda Development Board. It is not just a debate. Infused in Arusha Debates, the Arusha Experience.
Arusha Experience are activities that have been designed to expose the delegates who are coming for Arusha Debates to socio-economic potentials within Arusha and Manyara regions.
Arusha history, the culture, and the beauty of Arusha.
Arusha welcomes you to the Elite Summit 2021, and in particular, the inaugural Arusha Debate session happening as part of the Elite Summit. You Lead Africa, a One Young Africa, where dreams are born and youth become leaders.
The Arusha Debates is an idea that just came up recently, and it comes.
Mungu twaomba uilinde Jumuiya Afrika Mashariki, tuwezeshe kuishi kwa amani, tutimize na malengo yetu. Jumuiya yetu sote tuilinde, tuajibike, tuimarike. Umoja wetu ni nguzo yetu, idumu jumuiya yetu. Uzalendo pia mshikamano viwe msingi wa umoja wetu, na tulinde uhuru na amani, mila zetu na desturi zetu. Jumuiya yetu sote tuilinde, tuajibike, tuimarike. Umoja wetu ni nguzo yetu, idumu jumuiya yetu. Viwandani na hata mashambani, tufanye kazi sote kwa makini, tujitoe kwa hali na mali, tuijenge jumuiya bora. Jumuiya yetu sote tuilinde, tuajibike, tuimarike. Umoja wetu ni nguzo yetu, idumu jumuiya yetu.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellency, the former President of the United Republic of Tanzania, Rais Jakaya Mrisho Kikwete, the Secretary General of the East Africa Community Secretariat, Dr. Peter Mathuki, the Executive Director of MSTCD, good afternoon, Ms. McKenna Mobobia, good afternoon. Ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed, good afternoon to you. Good afternoon? All right, that sounds better. I hope that you, at the end of today, are going to leave thinking about the bigger Africa picture, the picture that we would like to sell to the rest of the world, not just today, but for the rest of the time to come. And that is what the Arusha Debates are here for. We're here to sell the Africa story. And just to paint the picture, think about the question, what do we want as Africa? What do we want? And because we have young people here, both male and female, I'm going to pose this question to a few of us. So, what do we want in Africa? And one of the Africa Union summits did pose this same question a few years ago, and they asked, what does Africa want? Or the Africa we want. Solomon, what?
The Africa that I want is an Africa that is full of young people who are job creators rather than job seekers. You know what I want? Like
Job
that's
creators.
that's what I want.
All right.
Yeah.
Job creators rather than job seekers.
Yeah.
The Africa I want is an Africa that has a young, educated population that can drive the narrative and also participate in the global market demand.
Wow. That's great. So let's hear what other
the Africa
young
you
people
want?
are saying.
Let's go around.
All
Let's
right.
go around. I see someone over here, and it's so lovely to see a lady putting her hand up with a big smile on her face. All right, the Africa we want.
The Africa I want, the ideal Africa I wish to see, is the Africa that is borderless, where there is free establishment for the youth. I can go to South Africa and establish my business without barriers. The Africa that promotes free movement of people and goods and services. My skills can be applicable elsewhere, minus Uganda. The Africa that we have one air carrier, one passport, where the youth can transfer their skills around the globe or around the continent. That's the Africa I want.
Whoa.
All right.
That's
What's
the
your- what's
Africa
your name
I want
again?
too.
What's your name?
My name is Esther from Uganda. I'm an economist by profession. I'm a chef by profession. I'm here as a policymaker as well as a business owner in Uganda. My business is called the Food Booth Uganda. I train personally the young people how to cook the nutritional facts in the food they must consume, from household to the dining, wherever you are. You must know about your food and what you gain from whatever you eat or serve. God bless
All
you.
right. Thank you so
Joy,
much. Solomon,
I want to add that Africa has the best food in the world.
say that again.
Certainly. Someone was telling me, West Africa. I don't know about that. All right. What's the Africa that you want?
I want Africa that's prosperous, integrated, peaceful, and driven by its own citizens. Thank you.
All right, I saw another hand up. Let's just be balanced in terms of. Okay, okay, all right. I think I saw a hand up here. If you can, respectful of gender. All right.
Thank you very much. David Nyaribi is my name. The Africa that I want and the Africa that I am contributing and creating is an Africa that is united, that is wealthy, that is healthy, and that is literate. And why is it like that? Because Africa for so long has been described as a continent that is disunited, that is poor, that is diseased, and illiterate.
All right. Thank you
All right.
so much. You have one
All right.
more, Solomon?
Yes, I have a lady at the back here.
Thank you so much. My name is Maureen Muketha. I'm a youth leader for Act for Food, Act for Change in Nairobi, Kenya. The Africa that I want, you have mentioned that Africa has really delicious food. The Africa that I seek to see is a continent free from malnutrition, where hidden hunger does not exist, where non-communicable diseases, which are preventable, can be eradicated and reduced. That's my dream for Africa.
Woo!
Young people
All right,
speaking
there's
joy.
so
Can I just
many,
give
there's
one
so
more-
many responses
Can I just give,
that we
can I
would
just give
get.
one more person joy?
Just one more person.
Okay, who
I
has
would
this
appreciate if we gave that opportunity to a
I want to give
gentleman.
it to a lady.
No, a gentleman, Solomon.
To a
3
lady.
ladies have spoken.
Thank you very much.
All right, the ladies win. The ladies are winning.
We run this world, right? Yes. My name's Magdalena Masanja. My name's Magdalena Masanja. I work for an organization called ComfiCare. We advocate for women and young girls to access menstrual health management and menstrual education. The Africa that I want to see the Africa that with youth who are taking actions. Let's stop taking these, making theories, thinking and what, but let's take that leap. Wherever we're scared, just take that leap and make that change. Tomorrow is not promised, but we can make it for our own sake. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Can you already feel the energy in the room?
Yeah.
Can you already feel it?
Yes.
All right, and I know that there's so many hands that are up, but we are going to come to that because we have a panel session. Each and all of us are going to get an opportunity
Joy,
to
someone
speak.
was telling me that I wasn't fair to the men. And
You weren't fair to the men.
All
But
right.
you know what they say? The future is female.
Are you sure? We'll not get that debate. We want to, in a special way, recognize the Regional Commission of Arusha, the Honorable John Mungela, who is also the co-host of the Arusha Debates. Please stand up for recognition. Let's give him some love. Thank you very much, the Honorable John Mungela, for joining us. Joy.
All right. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to begin by hearing about the concept of the Arusha Debates, the dream, the vision, and everything else. And we cannot start this conversation without our co-curators, and our co-curators are none other than Ivan Atuyambe, who is also the programs director here at MSTCD, DC, and also Mr. Richard.
Yeah, Sewa Chirianga.
Sewa Chirianga.
But Joy, someone whispered to my ears and said, "Who are you again?" So let's introduce ourselves again to some people who just came in.
All right. For those of you who just joined us, both virtually and physically, my name is Joy Doreen Bira, a media personality based in Kenya.
And my name is Solomon Serwanja. I am an investigative journalist and the executive director of the African Institute for Investigative Journalism.
All right. And let's, without wasting much time, invite the co-curator for the Arusha Debates to tell us what we need to know, where we need to go from here.
Joy, can I say I'm very jealous of Mr. Ivan? The cameras are always on him. The lights are always on you. So we'll let you enjoy the show. Ivan, you're welcome.
Thank you. Solomon and Doreen, thank you very much. And allow me to just stand here. We are honored to unveil the new idea, the idea of Arusha Debates. While I am waiting for a short presentation, allow me to ask a question, and I will begin with that question. If I pick 5 of us and ask you, what are Africa's 5 top most concerning challenges? I have some chocolates for the first winners. Just raise your hand, and someone will give you a mic if he's generous. Africa's 5 top most concerning challenges.
Okay, I'm seeing only ladies, so I'm going to be fair this time.
It's a ladies' world.
Hello. This is Faraji from Tanzania. The first one is literacy.
The first one is illiteracy. Thank you.
All right, we have another hand here.
My chocolates are on the way. I'm not picking, Solomon. You pick.
Okay, thank you. My name is Ian Bissett from Kenya. I put number 2 as political instability.
Thank you very much. I will get a lady. Where are you ladies? Ah, you talked. All right, I'll give you this.
Thank you. And by the names of Anna from South Sudan. Our biggest issue as Africans is dependence. We don't believe in ourselves. We feel we always need someone from somewhere to take us to a better place. And we always believe somewhere in the world is better than home. But Africa is the best in the world. The blessed place you'll ever be in. Thank you.
All right, Ivan, I'll give another opportunity to one more person who is.
They need to be 5.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity. My name is Akwat Sarah from South Sudan. As Africans, one of the third problem that we're facing is corruption and lack of patriotism in us.
Corruption and lack of patriotism. There's someone who is saying, I'm only choosing women.
Sorry, I forgive you now. Actually, my biggest concern is almost similar with that, but you chose her before. We are so depending in foreign donation than believing in us. Starting from technology, coming to the products, things that even the oil that we have in Uganda right now, if you're to go and see, the people who are concerned in the circle, they are foreigners. So I think that is the biggest
Thank you very much. I haven't ended there now. I think we have the top 5. Yeah, top 5, yeah? One person remaining. Solomon, is that true? Okay, let's do it quickly.
Okay, we'll do it quickly.
Thank you so much. Mine is in line with today's theme, or ULI 2021 theme. And the African biggest problem now in relation to younger people is under unemployment.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Now, what are Africa's 5 topmost concerning challenges? And that's where I would like to begin today.
Okay. Do you want me to move the mic around? Someone please roll the presentation, please. Back end. Slides. Next slide, please.
So that was my first question. It sparks our debate today. But I have the second question to put to us. Those topmost problems or challenges of Africa, according to who? That's the second question we need to answer. And I won't give the answers now. But topmost challenges the continent faces, and who prescribes these challenges? And we've covered the topmost 5. Now, the World Economic Forum states that unemployment and underemployment is Africa's topmost challenge. It is said that at least 6% of Africa's population cannot find meaningful employment. Number 2, Africa also has a challenge of underinvestment in infrastructure particularly. And when we talk about the AFCFTA, infrastructure in particular is very important, both in hardware and software. Number 3, fiscal crisis is number 3 Africa's challenge. So fiscal indiscipline and debt is Africa's number 3 problem. Well, if you look at them from another angle, the order may not be the same. Number 4. Number 4 is political change, according to the World Economic Forum. Not me and not you. Failure of national governance is a leading risk for businesses and stability. Number 5. Climate change has been described as Africa's other top challenge to deal with. 9 out of the most countries at risk are in Africa to climate change. So Africa has been asked to take action ahead of others. But what is our solution? And which way for Africa? I have said that when I ask you randomly, I would like you to compare your list of problems and the list the world says are topmost challenges for Africa. Do you agree with that list, first of all? That's a very important question. Illiteracy did not appear there. Somebody said. So, the way the world projects Africa, its challenges and the prescribed solutions may not be what Africa needs. And what does Africa need? 1, with that confusion, Africa needs self-definition or redefinition. Of course, Africa is already defined. I'm not saying it's not defined, but we need to re-examine ourselves, to refine ourselves, and 2, to have self-determination. External actors can only support, but they can't do for us. Number 3, we need to have self-management. So Africa's solution is in self-definition, self-determination, and self-management. Now, what is Arusha Debates therefore? For so long as we have seen, the world has described what Africa's problems are and the solutions that might lead Africa to the promised land. But examination of what results these solutions bring to Africa is not objectively conducted. For example, the SAPS of 1995, there was an apology for the mess, but apologies do not mend broken cups, for example. Apologies do not mend or return lost love. So we can have apologies, but if we make mistakes on the African continent, Africa can no longer continue to accept apologies. Number 2, 1994 genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda. We owed an apology. The world did not act and later offered an apology. Apologies do not return lost lives. Okay, so why then Arusha Debates? Arusha Debates is such a conversation that will answer these hard questions, examine the challenges Africa faces, and the solutions that should come out of Africa to solve Africa's topmost challenges. We believe that Arusha Debates will answer the question of what is Africa's problem, what is the exact solution, and according to Africans. That's the essence of the Arusha Debates. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to me, and enjoy, sit back, relax, and contribute. Arusha Debates 2021. I thank you once again.
Thank you very much, Ivan. You're so passionate about this. We really are happy to have you. We also have another co-creator for the Arusha Debate, Mr. Richard Sewachirianga, who is coming to us live from Kampala in Uganda. Mr. Richard, You're very welcome to give your opening remarks.
And as Richard makes his way to the virtual space, would like to remind all our speakers to please speak within your time, because we have speakers online who are very cautious of their time. Richard, the floor is yours now.
Thank you very much to all of you. Thanks to Joy and Solomon, to Mheshimiwa, the President. We thank you very much for always being a patron for African youth. The Mayor of Arusha City, we also welcome you, and the Secretary General of the East African Community, and all protocol observed, since Joy has said time is not on our side. I think what has been shared by Ivan really captures the moment and the mood of what the Arusha Debates is about. But I'll just add three small things, just to put it in context, that really what we hope that the Arusha Debate will be doing in that redefinition, in that self-determination, in the of what has been shared, is to ensure that along the way, we build bridges. We actually make the Arusha Debates become alive by making the generations, the young people, the older people, the middle-aged, all come together to be able to speak about Africa in a manner that is helpful and takes us forward. And I think that that is something that many of our speakers today will be touching on in many different ways. Another issue which would be helpful for us to do in the Arusha Debate, not only this year, but now and into the future, is to actually build consensus. We know that one of the biggest challenges that Africa has to deal with, if you are going to deal with issues of self-management, one important thing is to deal with the issue of how we build consensus, elite consensus, grassroots consensus, consensus around Africa, so that in terms of deciding where we want to go, we can actually find commonalities that can bring us together rather than divisions that can take us apart. So that is another important part of the Arusha Debates that we hope to achieve over the years. And lastly, is really to go into the solutions and look for African-led, African-driven, African-designed, and African-owned solutions to the problems of Africa. And that is something that we want to do on this continent, working with people, because we have some of the best brains around the world. And so we think that when we use these Arusha Debates as a moment of reflection, a moment of self-clarification of what we need to do as a continent, that will be very, very helpful for the young people. As you can see, the Arusha Debates is sandwiched within the U-Lead Summit, which is a youth-led summit. So we hope that that in itself is an important gesture and an iconography that shows you the seriousness and the way in which we see how we, as different generations in Africa, can actually start helping and supporting the biggest percentage of the population, which is young people, to define and bring together an Africa that works for all of us. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for coming. I know we started a little bit late, so we want to apologize for that, but we look forward to a very, 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 very exciting time this afternoon. Thank you and all the best, and welcome to the Arusha Debates.
Curator for the Arusha Debates. You're going to see us moving around as moderators. We're not going to be static in speaking to one position, just because we think these are debates, and we're going to be moving around with our microphones as we go on. But to officially give us our welcome remarks, I would like to invite Honorable John Mongela, who is the Regional Commissioner Arusha here in the United Republic of Tanzania. A round of applause for him.
Your Excellency Dr. Jakaya Mrisho Kikwete, former President of the United Republic of Tanzania and the patron of the U-Lead Summit. Honorable Dr. Peter Mathuki, Secretary General of the East African Community, Madam McKenna, Executive Director of the MSTCDC, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. First and foremost, I would like to take this opportunity to sincerely thank His Excellency Dr. Jakaya Mrisho Kikwete for the support to the Arusha Debates initiative and for the tireless work that he has been doing over the years for the promotion of the African development agenda. We continue to appreciate your support, sir, your dedication, your commitment to the African development agenda. In the same vein, allow me to express my gratitude and appreciation to Honorable Dr. Peter Mathuki and Madam McKenna for their role in making the Arusha Debates initiative a reality. Arusha Debates will offer an excellent opportunity for sharing experiences in order to learn from one another, and we aim to expose the rich history of Arusha region. It also aims to motivate global leaders to gather and provide thoughtful insights on how to make social and economic development a reality for the people of the African continent. Arusha is a developing region encompassing a vast history. We in Arusha believing that the success of the Arusha Debates will be another major accomplishment of our region, adding to some other well-known historical moments of which I'm glad to mention a few. Arusha is the home of the Olduvai Gorge, famously known as the cradle of mankind, which consists of major archaeological sites with the boundaries of the Ngorongoro Conservation Area and a designated part of the UNESCO World Heritage Site. Arusha is popularly known as the Geneva of Africa. It is the site of the signing of Arusha Accords, political agreements for Rwanda in 1993 and Burundi in the year 2000. It is the site of the signing of the Arusha Declaration, which defined the political cause of Tanzania for several decades. Arusha Clock Tower site is believed to be the halfway between Cairo and Cape Town. Arusha has long been an ideal gateway to Africa's most famous tourist attractions. And Arusha is considered to be the best preferred conferencing destination in Africa. As our patron, His Excellency Dr. Jakaya Mrisho Kikwete correctly mentioned yesterday, the true test of success of this initiative will depend on what happens after we leave, or on how we will start acting on what we have deliberated here. In conclusion, it is our belief that Arusha Debates will enhance the historical and diplomatic profile of the Arusha region and cement its place as a strategic location for major international activities. Asanteni sana, karibuni sana for Arusha Debates. Asante.
A big round of applause. We can do better. Arusha is the tourism capital, they say, of Tanzania. And I think you can tell on my way here, it's my first time in Arusha. And the first mountain I saw, of course, was Mount Kilimanjaro on my way here. And then there's Mount Meru. If you wake up at 6 in the morning, it has the most beautiful sight you could ever see. But of course, because people in Arusha see it every day, it doesn't make for a great tourist attraction. But for me, who was seeing it for the first time in the morning, I'm like, why don't I live here, you know? So please, I'm applying for a job in Arusha, for those of you. who are going to be, Dr. Madhuki, please take note. Please take note. All right, it's now time for us to invite our next speaker, and our next speaker is none other than Dr. Joy Kategekwa, who is the Strategic Advisor to the Assistant Administrator and Regional Director at the United Nations Development Program, UNDP. She's already here online. She's joining us from New York. Good morning, good afternoon, good morning. Good morning, Dr. Joy.
Good morning, Joy, and thank you very much for the moderation. I'm here representing the Assistant Secretary General and Assistant Administrator Director of the Regional Bureau for Africa. So I'm sharing these remarks on behalf of Ms. Ahuna Eziakonwa. So Honorable John Mongela, Arusha Regional Commissioner, United Republic of Tanzania, Honorable Dr. Peter Mathuki, Secretary General of the East African Community, my sister, as Ahuna would say, Vera Songwe, Executive Secretary of UNECA, Madame McKenna, MSTDC, and Your Excellency, Mr. Jakaya Mrisho Kikwete, former President of the United Republic of Tanzania and patron of the U-Lead Africa. And most of all, the young and dynamic youth of Africa. Congratulations on the Arusha Debates, a platform at which we debate and build consensus around taking Africa's socioeconomic progress forward. Arusha is historic for many reasons, critical ones being sealing deals of peace and rebirthing the dream of integration. It is no accident that Arusha is home to the East African community. So today's Arusha's debates topic, making the AFCFTA promise a reality, has dividends both for prosperity and for peace, this time at a continental scale. Africa has voted to trade its way out of poverty, and I'm glad that the youth dynamism driving us in this agenda is from Arusha. So let's ask a few questions about what the promise of the AFCFTA is. It's about breaking structural bottlenecks that grip Africa in a place of exporting raw materials to the world. In its simplest form, therefore, the model that Africa has right now locks it into cycles of poverty as nations adding value progress and sell Africa's finished goods. It's also about diversifying Africa's basket of goods and services to create needed supplies on the continent. It's also about building resilience, which, as COVID has told us, we cannot continue to offshore sustainably. So, Excellencies, dear Africa's young people, the AFCFTA is ultimately about reclaiming the dignity of the African by accelerating homegrown development solutions. So what can be done to make sure the promise is a reality? 3 key messages. 1, build productive capacity. 2, strengthen enabling environments. And 3, change mindsets. How can we build productive capacity? Africa's contribution to global trade is negligible at only 2.4%. The gradual reduction and elimination of tariffs in the AFCFTA is important, but it's only part of the solution. For if we bring the tariffs down, what will be exported? So we must build productive capacity. And while this term can seem complicated, if it's defined by the economists to mean institutions, policies, human capital, etc., in fact, it's a simple one. If you ask the question, what can you produce as Africa's young people for the One Africa market? And so at UNDP, we are seized by this point and are working strategically with the Secretariat of the African Continental Free Trade Area to identify the opportunities in the AFCFTA and more so to deploy our country presence in each of the countries that have ratified the agreement to strengthen precisely that capacity. A small point on the creating enabling environments to incentivize intra-African trade. Many African governments are investing in trade facilitation reforms. You would know they're single windows, one-stop borders. They're trying to digitalize customs procedures. But most of that is really focused at the border. The question of enabling environments has to be what happens before the border. How are you helping exporters to get ready for that? We've been talking to women, together with UN Women and other agencies within the UN, precisely to ask that question, what is needed? And these conversations are revealing eye-opening instructions, illuminating foundations of what a trade capacity building agenda should be. Finally, how do you build an African mindset that will believe in made in Africa products? Because if you imagine, if the value chains work, then there will be larger content of African products on the market. But will we buy them? Do we believe in them? Shall we vote for them with our money? So this is what we mean when we talk about Africa's 1.2 billion people, that the success of the venture of the AfCFTA is ultimately about how Africans feel about buying African products. And therefore the mindset must shift to support African businesses, their ideas, their innovations, their technologies, their products. And so we must beat the drum on the campaign, buy made in Africa to build Africa. In concluding, let me reiterate the commitment I made to ULID when we held our fireside chat in the summer, which is that UNDP will work with you as part of the youth pillar of our UNDP Africa work. Concluding, in this historic city of Arusha, where transformative Pan-African deals are made, let us make a deal today. Let us make an Africa AfCFTA Youth Accord, where we commit to do our respective parts to make the AfCFTA promise a reality. At UNDP, we commit to this deal and to working with you to see its success. Thank you very much.
Administrator and Director, UNDP's Regional Bureau for Africa in New York. And I agree, if you think about the 1.2 billion market that we have on the African continent, you cannot believe the potential that we have. We just need to believe in products made in Africa. And by saying that, I just wanted to let you know, Solomon, that I'm wearing Made in Africa today.
Really?
Yep.
Wow.
With the exception of my shoes. But we're getting there. We're going to be making Made in Africa shoes as well.
I really love what I'm looking at.
All right.
And Dr. Joy was encouraging us as young people, what can we do? How can we meet the market? You know. So thank you very much, Dr. Joy, for those remarks. I want to now invite Honorable Dr. Peter Mathuki, Secretary General of the ESC, to come through and give his opening remarks. Let's give Dr. Mathuki a round of applause.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Your Excellency, Dr. Jakaya Mrisho Kikwete, former President of the United Republic of Tanzania and patron of the ULID, John Mongela, our host, the Regional Commissioner, the Madam McKenna, indeed all of you here assembled, ladies and gentlemen. I want to associate myself, start by associating myself on behalf of the East African community with this very exciting topic this afternoon on Africa, on Arusha Debates. Of course, making AfCFTA a reality, it's quite innovative, and I want to agree with Your Excellency yesterday when you said all the eyes are in Arusha, and therefore I think that the whole world, it is possible that you as the Regional Commissioner, Mr. Mongela, all the eyes are in Arusha. And therefore, I think that is something we need to be excited about. The fact that the youth, the world, everyone is talking about Arusha. And that is what His Excellency was saying, that this is an exciting moment for you. You are hosting many, many people in Arusha. And I think that is indeed something. And when you are narrating about what Arusha is and what it stands for, one thing is that Arusha is the seat of the community. And therefore, I think it's important for people to know, as we move, Arusha is the seat of the community, and possibly that's why you said it is the Geneva of East Africa, and hopefully in Africa soon. And therefore, looking at some of these things, and I want to agree that all that we are doing here, we need to sustain it going forward. We need to make sure that this happens every other time, and the more we communicate, debate, speak about what we want for Africa, I think it will one day it will come to pass. So I think we need to take that seriously. Looking at the African itself, and of course being the largest free market that is offered by AfCFTA, the largest Africa free market, that is something I think we need to get excited about, given that of course a home of 1.3 billion people. The only thing is that the intra-Africa trade is still at less than 15%. In East Africa, and the business community, EABC, will tell you, the intra-EAC trade, as we speak, is still below 15%. The business that is being done within East Africa among the partner states is still at below 15%. When the rest of the world, you go look at the Europe, they're doing at 68% to 70%. Asia is doing at 58%. Indeed, ourselves in Africa at below 17%, in East Africa are still below 15%. Much as, of course, that is a challenge, I think that's an opportunity. And we need to look at it that way and see why can't we make and take advantage of this. East Africa is a home of close to almost 200 million people. And if you are to go and design a product, one product, however small it is, you'll be assured of 200 million people. If you are selling that product for $1, yeah, and you are able to get that market, that's the money you'll be able to make as an East African entrepreneur. So I think there is a lot that we need to take advantage of. And I agree with you when you are saying, let us not so much depend on what is coming out. Let us start being ourselves. And I think that could be the way forward. And if Africa, we are talking of 3.4 trillion GDP. That is something that indeed anyone would be looking for. And obviously every other investor coming to this place will be looking at Africa as a single market. 1.3 billion, a GDP of 3.4 US dollars. So ourselves, we are here, and therefore yourselves with your energy as young people, see how we need to take advantage of this. Of course, the exciting thing is that the partner states of the EAC, 5 of them, have ratified the CFTA. And I think that is something we need to appreciate, that at least the policymakers and all of us are united towards making this dream a reality. And therefore, I would be happy to see one day have open skies in Africa. I'd want to be happy to see open skies in East Africa. You should be able to take a flight from here and Dar es Salaam and go to Nairobi or go to Kigali, Bujumbura at almost like $100. And that is happening in Europe. Why not in East Africa? If you want to buy a ticket from Bujumbura coming to Arusha, you pay almost $1,000. And yet, when going to Europe, possibly you pay around $600. So there must be something that is not right. And what is that is not right? These are some of the things we need to ask ourselves and see how we make things happen. During COVID, you saw these big machines, the planes, being parked at the airports. And therefore, we are paying loans for those kind of machines. And when I was having a discussion with the CEOs of the airlines in East Africa, I challenged them. I asked them, why can't you guys work together? Identify common markets for yourselves. Let us see, for example, if it's Air Tanzania, take advantage and go to Asia, for example. Go and bring goods for East Africa. Yeah? Repurpose this machine that is meant for passengers, make it cargo, let it go to China or part of Asia, bring cargo for all the countries in East Africa, land in Dar es Salaam, and let the small planes now pick those goods and take to destination in the other capitals. That is possible, instead of parking those big machines. Let Rwanda here, for example, go to Europe and do the same for East Africa. Let's see Kenya go to another market and do that same. That is something that can possibly be done instead of keeping this machine. And that is now open skies. So I think it is possible. One area network. It becomes, and one of the issues of ease of doing business is now we communicate. Every time, everyone here is carrying a phone. How easy is it to make a call from here to any other part of Africa? These are some of the things I think we need to challenge ourselves and make it easy. And instead of now looking at the revenues that you make out of the call, look at the volumes and instead make it easier for people to communicate. And indeed, that should be the Africa we want within the framework of CFTA. And therefore, yourselves being the resource for this continent, you can make Africa the factory of the world. It is possible. Today, we depend a lot on making other parts of the world the factory. We can make Africa the factory because we have the resources. We have natural resources, we have the human resources, we have the capacity. So therefore, it's about taking advantage. And the time is now, and you have that opportunity. So I think as we launch Arusha Debates, let us be practical and ask ourselves some of these very difficult questions. And therefore, let us also listen and learn a lot from others. We have learned a lot from COVID. COVID has brought in, it has come in with a lot of challenges, but it has also come in with a lot of opportunities. We need to learn that indeed, whenever there are things like this, it's about ourselves. How can we work together? How can we start repurposing and make things happen? Before COVID, Nobody would have imagined that you can get a mask made in East Africa or in Africa. We would always get even import masks. But I saw now people taking advantage. We have the best of, let's say, the sector of apparel in East Africa. Why can't we take on advantage of that? The textiles, we are reaching that and repurpose. And therefore, I think it's the high time we ask ourselves some of these very difficult and hard questions and give answers. Once we give answers, we make Africa that we want. Thank you very much and have a lovely afternoon. And therefore, ladies and gentlemen, indeed yesterday was very exciting, and we must all of us appreciate the fact that our own patron and His Excellency and the former President of the United Republic of Tanzania was with us. And he was with us until almost up to midnight, asking questions and engaging. And he still has the energy to come to join us this afternoon and discuss. So that is passion. And that's what I'm saying. I think we need to appreciate. These are rare, these are very rare moments. And I think this is sending a message to other leaders in the world. Yes. Yeah? Creating time to come and talk to the future. Talk to the young people. Invest. With all his experience that he has, he says, no, I don't want to stay with it. I want to invest all this to the young people. Your Excellency, thank you very much. It's my humble and honor and duty to call you to address this. Let's all be upstanding to welcome His Excellency to come and talk to us. Mheshimiwa Rais, karibu sana.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary General. Please be seated. I'm not used to this. I look like in a classroom. Honorable John Mongela, the Regional Commissioner of Arusha, His Excellency Dr. Peter Mathuki, Secretary General of the East African Community, Madam McKenna, Executive Director of TCMCDC, Madam Dr. Joy Kategeko from the UNDP, New York, my friends, the young people of Africa, of East Africa, gathered here, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I feel greatly honored and privileged to be invited and to be associated with this historic event of the inauguration of the Arusha Debates. I congratulate all the people in the East African Community Secretariat, TCMCDC, and the Arusha Regional Commissioner's Office who were part of the thinking in the conception of this wonderful idea. I like the idea of having a forum where people from all walks of life and from the various social, economic, and political backgrounds sitting together under one roof to discuss issues of common interest. I'm glad that you have chosen as its primary objective. The Arusha Debate will seek to discuss and highlight pressing African issues which would require regional, continental, and global policy attention and action. This kind of focus of the Arusha Debates is something I wholeheartedly welcome and support. But in order for the primary objective of the Arusha Debates to be fulfilled, I'm of the view that you should ensure three things happening. First, that the debates will not simply be an academic discourse, far removed from realities of our continent, its countries, and its people. I would wish that there will be objective analysis of the prevailing situation on our dear continent, as well as open and candid discussions culminating into pertinent and practical solutions being proposed. It should not be a forum of people complaining, because we are so good at that, blaming everybody except ourselves. That one. It should be a forum where people are engaged in honest, open, serious discussions about the reality of the situation in our respective countries, our societies, but also people coming up with the proposals on what needs to be done. Second, that I would wish the deliberations to be curated and disseminated to as wide an audience as possible, with emphasis on local and grassroots reach. Only then will the Arusha Debates achieve its intended purpose. Third, that you are embarking on a major undertaking with huge implications for Arusha, Tanzania, and the East Africa region. Make sure that the debates are organized well, with the highest levels of proficiency and efficiency. You must always remember that debates add another milestone in the history of Arusha and the history of East African cooperation. Currently, this city is well renowned for being the hub of Tanzania's northern tourist circuit, the home of the East African community, and home to the international conferences, as this place is, but also home to important global and regional institutions like ICTR, PAPU, TCM, CDC, and several others. A successful Arusha Debates will add another significant milestone to the Arusha brand. Ladies and gentlemen, let me say that I have no doubt in my mind that you'll be able to deliver the Arusha Debates, an Arusha Debates as a world-class undertaking. If they could do it with Davos, we can also do it with Arusha. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, after those many words, it is now my singular honor and pleasure to declare the inaugural Arusha Debates officially open. Best of luck. Let's get down to business. Okay. Please sit down. I've been given a task which I sincerely like to do, to invite the keynote speaker, Dr. Vera Songwe, to speak and talk to the young men and women of the African continent. I've known Vera Songwe for many years now. I've known her to be one of Africa's prominent economists. Yes, she has worked with the World Bank and several other institutions, and she's now heading the Economic Commission for Africa. She's one of our best minds in Africa. She's young, as you can see her in the photo. She's one of you. Vera, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon. First of all, let me say good afternoon to the youth. Distinguished Mr. President, thank you so much for that introduction. It is a pleasure to be introduced by you. It's an honor to be introduced by you. It's good to see you again. I'm very, very sorry and apologetic that I could not be with you in Arusha today as you described the mountains. I would love to be there since I come from Cameroon and from the Northwest, where we also have many mountains. So there goes Africa for you, with a lot of similarities. Distinguished gentlemen, it is an honor. I stand under all the protocols that have already been used. Let me start by saying, it's only if we, and I listened a little bit to the conversation about what we wanted to get from the Arusha debates, and there was a lot of conversation around governance, jobs, corruption, leadership. I think you said it all. So as the youth of the continent, first of all, you already know everything. You already know what we need to do. And I'm not here to give you a lecture about what more we can, what you need to do. I think the question, as His Excellency the President said, and that's one of the reasons why he has been my mentor for this many years, is that he's been a doer. And I think we are here today to understand, how can we do? What is it that we need to do to be different? What is it that we need to do to move forward? Under the theme of the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement, as the Secretary General, Mr. Mungela, has clearly said, there is a lot that we need to do, but we need to start. And the first piece of doing it is to just start somewhere. And I think this year, in January 1, we launched the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement. And many people would say, we never believed that that could be done, but we did it. And that was the first step. And so for every one of you in that room today and everybody listening to us, the question then is, now that it is done, what do we need to do more? And to understand, I think, the vision of the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement, it was in the making. I have the privilege of sitting in the Economic Commission for Africa in the building where, the first 23 presidents on the continent declared their independence. And in that building at that time, on that day, leaders of the continent from, of course, His Excellency Julius Nyerere to Kenneth Kaunda, all talked about the need for Africa to integrate. If we stop today and ask ourselves, how far have we come since that day? How much have we done since that day? Clearly, a lot of the speakers that came before me would say not enough. Even when we talk about Africa and world trade and Africa and its place in world trade, as a share of world trade, Africa is 2%. As a share of world trade, Africa is 2%. Essentially, it means that we, even as Africans, do not value our own ideas. Inter-Africa trade is 16% of our trade. We trade more with the rest of the world than we trade with ourselves. If you assume that trading is the beginning of an idea, we buy something because somebody had an idea and then converted that idea into an asset, into a commodity that you could purchase. It means that amongst ourselves, we only believe that we are 16% worthy. And that's why we only trade at 16% with ourselves. And most of the time, what we trade is something that has not been processed. So it's raw materials in their most basic form. 60 years later, this cannot be the pride of the continent. We must begin to think about how we go forward. And again, we talked a little bit about how do we make the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement a success. Tanzania is already there in many respects. And I take the tourism. Today, of the tourists that visit Tanzania, 44% are Africans, 32% are Europeans. A country that begins to value itself, a continent that begins to value itself, if you look at the Europe, 90% of the tourism in Europe happens by Europeans. 72% of the tourism in France happens by French people. And so, again, I go back to the allusion and the conversation around the mountains you woke up to. It is those mountains which are ours that have to carry us. We cannot be carried by somebody else's mountains. And this is the point of the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement. It is to say that from one mountain, we must see the next mountain, and it has to be an African one. And so if we stand today on Mount Kilimanjaro, we should be able to see Mount Cameroon in Boya. And that's where connectivity starts. One of the places where we can start talking about the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement is the trade in services. We are fortunate because today, over 65% of the continent's GDP is actually in the service sector. We are doing a lot more in the service sector, which means we are actually trading with each other. We're doing services, we're doing tourism, we're doing logistics. But the problem is, do we have the internet services that we need? Do we have the infrastructure to have the kind of broadband so that when an innovation is done in Arusha, tomorrow morning, it can be logged on in Ethiopia, where I'm sitting in Addis Ababa? Can we make sure that when a young woman does robotics innovation in Zanzibar, we can see that same innovation somewhere in Eswatini? And we don't have that potential. We still live in a system on a continent where the internet is cut, the broadband is not strong enough, the penetration is not deep enough. In Tanzania, of course, you're leading. You have 74% already of internet penetration, but only 42% access, and because the costs are high. So we need to do something about that. And I think that is where I want to start. One of the things that links us the most together, before we start buying each other's goods, we have to be able to talk to each other. We have to be able to know each other. Today on the continent, because of COVID, we've learned so much. We can visit each other's history on the internet, and we can visit each other's culture on the internet, but we cannot do that if we don't have the infrastructure that is needed. But the internet and the Internet of Things is where women can excel the most, is where women can demonstrate their capacities. And that's why the Economic Commission for Africa launched what we call the African Girls Connect. We have now 15,000 girls we have connected across the continent on the internet, teaching them how to design and develop products, how to talk about their societies and things they would like to change in their societies by designing animations, amazing animations that young girls in Ethiopia, in Cameroon, in Zimbabwe, in Zambia, we're about to do one, in Congo are doing. We will hope that eventually the Arusha Debates will be able to move not just from Arusha, and that all of us will be able to virtually be in Arusha as I am today, across the continent with all those girls that are connecting and join you to see what that dream is. But again, we must understand where we come from. We must understand why the mountain is where it sits. And I think only then can we move forward. As part of the conversations that you had about what are the 5 things we need to do for Africa, one of them was talking about whether we rely too much on the colonial masters or whether we need to have our own ideas and opinions. We must continue to have our own ideas and opinions. But if we had our ideas and opinions and did not understand the ideas and opinions of others, then we will never be able to be as, if not better. And so it has to be an understanding that is universal. It has to be an understanding that understands that, what happened in Bosnia and what happened in Rwanda are the same thing, and we must take lessons from them. It has to be an understanding that says, what is happening in the Amazon forest when we do not protect our forests could also happen in the peatlands of the Central Congo if we do not protect our forests. So there is a need for us to see ourselves as part of a global community that fights the global challenges of climate change, of discrimination, of ethnicity, of political impasses as a global community. And that is why we continue to talk about multilateralism. However, that multilateralism can only come from the beginning of the mountains that started on our continent, and we must understand those today. On COVID, and I want to end on that, again, we're living this divergence which says the developed world has vaccines and the developed world can cure itself. We are beginning to see countries open up and say we will only open up to those that are vaccinated. This is about COVID, and it's very visible and it's very obvious, but we have lived that for a long time. We have lived that for a long time because as a continent, we have not been able to achieve the prosperity that is needed for us to interact in a common way with everybody else. And what we need on the continent today is to have a seat at the table, to level the playing field in science, in technology, in literature. You have, of course, one of the greats of the literary world coming from Tanzania. So we know that we can get the Nobel Prize in literature, just like we can get the Nobel Prize in economics, and why not the Nobel Prize in physics? Each one of us must know that this is part of who we are for us to be able to integrate. And His Excellency talked about why don't we make the Arusha Debates better than the WEF? I would say it's already better. It's already better because you only have youth here. It is an inclusive process. And so it's not so much like, are we going to make it better than the WEF? It's how do we continue to keep it ahead of the WEF because of its inclusive nature. The WEF is not an inclusive system. It is great as a platform, but I think, again, this is where Africa joins the rest of the world by demonstrating that we can do what the world is doing, but do it better. You are already leading with the Arusha Debates. I am honored, and it's a great, great pleasure to be able to address you today. And I hope, again, that we take the message. We need to understand who we are. We need to understand where we are coming from. And only then can we make sure that we take that step forward. 60 years ago, we talked about the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement. One piece of homework that I would like to give you: 23 African presidents came to Addis Ababa 63 years ago to declare independence. You were talking, one of the speakers was talking about transportation. I wonder how they got to Addis Ababa 23 years ago. Today, you cannot go from Nigeria to DRC without spending 12 hours. These are parts of those conversations that we need to begin to understand. If we can understand how 23 presidents, conquered time, conquered difficulty to come and say, yes, we want to be independent, it cannot be possible that 60 years later, it takes us 24 hours to go from one African country to another. We have to break down those barriers, and it is for you to lead in that spirit. It's for you, the youth that have come together and gathered in Arusha, to demonstrate to us that if you can come to Arusha, you should be able to go to any other part of the world. We are the Economic Commission for Africa, are working to see how we can break down those barriers. We're working on the CFTA, we're working on technology with the Girls Can Code, as I said, and we hope that the little that we do here continues to contribute to building the mountain that is Africa, and that we can all together stand on top of it and say that you have led us and we have succeeded. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Vera Songwe, who is the Under Secretary General at the United Nations, and she
Economic Commission for Africa.
Yeah. United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, and she is also the Executive Secretary to UNECA. She is the UN Under Secretary General and Executive Secretary to UNECA. Thank you so much. Another round of applause for her.
I was surprised to find out from Dr. Vera's presentation that intertrade within Africa is at 16%.
It is at 16%, slightly over 16%. I think it's now at about 16.3%. 3 percentage points make a difference.
But Joy, that means that, is it that we don't trust our own products? What's the problem?
It's not an issue of trust. I think I don't know how to put it, and forgive me if I say this, but this is my opinion. I think that it's a colonial way of thinking, that we do not believe in our own products. I mean, the other day, and in addition to what Dr. Mathuki said during his speech, he said that this paltry 16% that we have on the continent today
is very disappointing. And to put it into context, he talked about how difficult it is to travel around the African continent. But in addition to that, the Nigerians a few years ago had to export flowers from Kenya to London, or to Europe in this case, before bringing them back to West Africa. And that puts into perspective how difficult it is to trade amongst ourselves. That to go to Tunisia, sometimes you have to travel to Paris, or go to Dubai, or go to, I don't know where else. You go to Addis first from here, and then go to Paris, and then back to Tunisia. So you go out of the continent to come back into the continent to visit a country that's on the continent. And I think we really need to break those barriers. And there's no amount of help that comes from outside the continent that could fix some of these challenges. And that's why we're here to make this magic happen. The African Continental Free Trade Area is looking to break all of these barriers. And I think we really should applaud this Continental Free Trade Area, because it's the biggest trading bloc all over the world. since the formation of the World Trade Organization. So I think we should be excited about it. Maybe give a round of applause for it.
Yeah, I agree, Joy. And Dr. Joy earlier on told us that mindset change, we need to start there. I'll tell you something. Africa has very good tourism attraction areas. The other day, Dubai had the Dubai Expo, Your Excellency. Think about how many people went there, including us who put up stores there. Uganda in itself spent about 3.3 billion shillings setting up expos. If you ask how many Ugandans have visited Kenya or the Serengeti for their honeymoon, you know, they prefer to go to Paris, to Dubai. And, you know, how many of us, for example, have had our honeymoons within East Africa or within Africa as a whole? Are we proud that we are actually going to Dubai to have our honeymoons, or can we go to the Serengeti for our honeymoon? And someone is laughing in the background. I think this is what Dr. Vera is trying to say. How do we support each other and grow each other as a continent, Joy?
Right. And we have the advantage of the Internet of Things that we are here to also exploit. So before we get into a high-level panel debate session, I would like to recognize some very important people who are joining us for the inaugural Arusha Debates. Miss Damali Chironde, who is representing His Excellency Richard Kabonero, who is the Uganda High Commissioner to the United Republic of Tanzania. A round of applause for her.
Welcome, Ma'am.
And we also have His Excellency, the High Commissioner of Kenya to the United Republic of Tanzania, His Excellency Ambassador Dan Kazungu.
Welcome, Your Excellency. And we want to say a special thank you to our online audience. Dear our online audience, we appreciate your time. Thank you very much for being part of the Arusha. We'll give you an opportunity to also contribute to the discussion here, Joy.
All right, and now, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce...
Excuse me.
Yes, please.
The patron is what?
No, I was just going to say something very briefly.
Raise, go ahead.
That when we were at the university studying, one of our professors, Professor Justinian Raymam, an economist who is late now, summarized our situation as we produce what we don't consume and consume what we don't produce.
Your Excellency, can you say that again? Because it needs to sink in.
We produce what we don't consume and consume what we don't produce. That summarizes our situation.
Wow.
And that's the reality.
Yeah.
We produce what we don't consume and consume what we do not produce. And the clear example is people who import sausages from Europe into Africa. Yet, we make sausages in Tanzania. We make sausages in Nigeria. But the Nigerians would prefer to eat sausages from the United Kingdom.
I mean, look at KFC, for example. You know, and everyone is laughing because they know what I'm going to come up next. We have chicken, kuku.
Kienyeji.
Imagine, we have potatoes, Irish potatoes. But what happens?
We're getting
finger licking
tinned
good,
potatoes.
right? But anyway, Your Excellency, thank you for that. And I think we have noted it down.
All right. Rice, thank you so much for putting that perspective into this conversation. And as we seek to find homegrown solutions to African challenges, it's now time for us to have a high-level debate. And I would like to introduce our panelists who are joining us both virtually and physically. And I'm going to start with Dr. Halima Noor, who is the Senior Advisor of the African Continental Free Trade Area Secretariat, and she's here representing the Secretary General of the African Continental Free Trade Area Secretariat, that is Wamkele Mene, who is not here, so she's here to represent him and also give a perspective into the African Continental Free Trade Area.
All right, Joy, we also want to say a special welcome to Mr. Zenatha Zephania Nyoku, who is the Deputy Chief Executive Officer of the Rwanda Development Board, which is a government of the Republic of Rwanda entity that is tasked to transform Rwanda into a global hub for business and innovation. Joy.
All right, and we have Mustafa Njie, who is the president of TAF Africa Global, and he is coming to us from the Gambia. It's so good to see you virtually. Probably you could wave at us. So we can, all right, so we can be sure that you're seeing us and listening to us.
All right, we also have Mr. John Bosco Kalisa, who is the Chief Executive Officer of the East African Business Council. He's with us. Please wave for us. Thank you very much for being part of the debate.
Okay, and also virtually we have Richard Sewachirianga, who is a co-curator for the Arusha Debates.
All right, thank you very much, Richard. You can wave to us. Thank you. It's good to have you here. We also have Dr. Alex Owiti, who is the Vice Provost, Aga Khan University, coming to us live from Kenya. Where are you at? Okay.
I am actually in Dar es Salaam.
I'll put you up.
We can see you.
Oh, we can see you. Can you wave to us at least? Yeah.
I'm in Dar.
Right.
Can you hear me?
It's good to see you, Dr.
It's good to see you.
And Mr. John Bosco Kalisa, who is the Chief Executive Officer of the East African Business Council, here in person with us. Kindly wave to the audience virtually and physically.
Okay, great. We have Dr. Halima Noor again, just maybe to wave to us again. Thank you very much. All right, a special thank you to both our online and here. We want to really say we're grateful. Let's start with Mr. Zephania from the Rwanda Development Board. Thank you so much for being with us. I know that you've been waiting, so we appreciate you for that. And we want to ask you what your general thoughts are on the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. Is it something that is achievable? I mean, I know it was signed in Rwanda, and we're all excited about it. It hasn't yet taken off. It was supposed to take off in January. But give us, I mean, you come from a case study of a country that has made it. Talk to us about what has made Rwanda, go out there and be a star in Africa in terms of the ease of doing business and the different policies that you've put in place. And perhaps it could be grounding for us to start discussing the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. Mr. Zephania, you're welcome.
Thank you very much, moderator. And it's my great pleasure to be part of this conversation. And, special thanks to His Excellency Jakaya for having started off this. A special thanks to also Dr. Vera for excellent remarks. And also rest of our panelists and dignitaries following this conversation, be the ones following virtually and those who are in the room. Now, before I come probably to the history of the Rwanda Development Board and what we have been doing to facilitate business, to facilitate tourism, to facilitate trade, coming back to the question that the moderator asked, is it possible? The question is yes, it's possible, but it definitely requires a youth and also African states to walk the talk, to do what we sign, because there are two things. There is really us coming here, we debate, we agree on policies, we agree on quite a number of agenda items. And then there is also another aspect of saying, how do we implement everything that has been discussed? So from a perspective, the Africa Free Continental Trade area is possible. It simply requires government to invest into it, to make sure that they make it happen. And we let the members of the private sector do business. So it's definitely signed in Kigali. That's in a building which is probably 5 minutes walking distance from where I'm speaking from. And we are pretty much confident that this is something that will happen and which will really change Africa for good. So that's really what I wanted to start with. And coming back to who we are, to what we've been doing to facilitate private sector. Our entity is Rwanda Development Board, and this is an entity which was established in 2008. And the government of Rwanda decided to create Rwanda Development Board to make sure that we facilitate members of the private sector to quickly do business. So there are two major elements that we wanted to work on. Number one, to ensure that we reduce on the cost of doing business. And then number two, we also reduce on the time that it takes members of the private sector to either access services or to unlock anything that they need to be able to do their business. So that's how the government of Rwanda made a decision to merge around 8 institutions which were doing different activities. So before, we used to have Rwanda Investment and Export Agency. We used to have Rwanda Information Technology Authority. We used to have Rwanda Commercial Registration Services Agency. We had a tourism agency. All of these were brought together to form Rwanda Development Board. And the idea was, how do we make sure that we streamline services? How do we make sure that we build synergies? How do we make sure that we avoid duplication? How do we make sure that we pool resources together and be able to serve members of the private sector quickly and efficiently? So it's in that regard that these institutions were brought together to form Rwanda Development Board, and the one-stop shop has been established, which has really been providing quick services to members of the private sector. And since the establishment of this one-stop center, we have seen massive change in terms of really facilitating members of the private sector to do business. Currently, you can come, register your company. You don't need to come to Kigali. You can do it online wherever you might be in the world. Within a course of 6 hours or less, you get your certificate of incorporation. So with the one-stop center, we have all the services that investors might need, be getting work permits, be having environmental impact assessment certificates if you have to do one, be having access to tax-related services. So all of these have really been put in place to facilitate members of the private sector, and they have been paying off. If you look into some of the rankings or some of the benchmarkings, be with the World Economic Forum, be with the World Bank and other benchmarks, Rwanda is considered the second most competitive economy in Africa, a second place in terms of the ease of doing business. And all of these also have been leading to increased investments of the private sector in our economy. If you look into our numbers, for example, in terms of the private sector investment commitments, 10 years ago, commitments were estimated at 0.4 billion USD. As of 2019, we were at 2.4 billion USD in terms of the commitments of the private sector as far as the investments are concerned. So all of these have been possible because of these services, because of these reforms that we have made to make sure that we facilitate the private sector. So it's really possible. It comes back to making sure that the leaders, the members of the public sector work closely with members of the private sector, ensure that they have that willingness to make things happen. So those are really the key perspectives that I would like to provide as we discuss doing business, as we discuss conducting trade in Africa, having countries trading among themselves. At the beginning, the moderators were talking about aspects like travels, aspects like someone leaving Africa, you go to another continent, and then you come back to Africa, to another country, or you import stuff that could be produced or could be sourced in other African countries. I believe with these free continental trade agreements, we should be able to intensify trading activities between the African nations. So those are the quick perspectives that I wanted to provide. And as we discuss, I'll be happy to jump in again. Thank you very much.
From the Rwanda Development Bank. And, now that we've heard the perspective of Rwanda and we understand how easy it is to do business in Rwanda, can we carry on this example to the rest of Africa? And we know that other African countries as well are following suit and making sure that we are easing trade amongst ourselves. But let's hear the perspective from the African Continental Free Trade Area Secretariat. And to give us that perspective, we have Dr. Halima Noor to share with us. And if I could pose the question to you, Dr. Halima, you know, the African Continental Free Trade Area is, of course, the biggest trade bloc if we are going to effect it. And where are we now? Let's have a look at that perspective, because it should have been effected in January 2021, but because of a few wires that need to be connected, that's yet to happen. So give us the perspective. Usher us into it so we can make resolutions on how we're going to push it forward.
You that have listened to His Excellency Wamkele Mene, you've heard him talk about the youth. Sorry, and I also speak very fast. It's an ethnic liability sometimes. But it could be also good because I wouldn't take median. Oh, sorry. It's not working. Maybe it's better this one. Yes. Yeah. No, it doesn't work. Higher technology and COVID. Still not working. Okay, so there's a Zambian comedian who said, it's our education system. We are taught in school about European geography, history. So as soon as we make a little money, we want to go to London or Paris. We don't learn about other African countries. And what we learn about African countries is from TV and not very great things. I thought I should mention that as well. And also about intra-Africa trade, setting the context. Yes, it's at 16 to 18%. We produce the same things, actually, and we export to the rest of the world raw material. But when we trade in intra-Africa goods, we buy a number of areas that are like, etc. Okay, let me set the context as well. We have 54 or 55 African. Hello, is that okay? Okay, 54 of the 55 African countries that have signed the FCFTA. And signing actually means they intend to become state parties, take part in this agreement. Haya. The only country that has not signed is Eritrea. We are hoping that Eritrea will sign, and the Secretary General actually has intention of going to Eritrea, and he's been making the rounds in Africa, and we were here in July to meet Her Excellency, the President Mama Samia. 42 countries have ratified the agreement. 39 countries are state parties, meaning they have deposited their instruments of ratification. 3 countries are yet to deposit, and 1 is United Republic of Tanzania, Cabo Verde, and Congo. So we are hoping Tanzania would deposit soon. We want all the East African countries to be part of this journey. And Guinea-Bissau has ratified and waiting the gazetting process. So basically, it's goods and services, the first phase of negotiations. And the FCFTA is a different animal, is a different agreement. We are going to have a dispute settlement mechanism. The dispute settlement mechanism has already kick-started. Panels have been established. And if I was advising the youth, I would advise youth actually when they go to school to study things that all of us when we left school, we thought we wanted to be lawyers and doctors. You can be a lawyer, but you do arbitration and you do international trade law. So you look for spaces that you can actually come in and compete competitively. We have 4 customs unions that have submitted their tariff offers, and this includes East African Community, and I will call out EAC since I'm from the region.
We have received their offer, but it's not 90%, so we are waiting for the 90% tariff offer from the East African community. The Secretariat has promised us we are at 88, so we are waiting for the 90% as soon as we leave Arusha. We have 29 initial tariff offers that have been technically verified that they comply with what we have agreed. Let me just say this. This is a very ambitious agreement. The first 5 years and 10 years for non-developing countries is 90%, 7% is sensitive products, and 3% is excluded. But it's not excluded forever. We are going to have a review. And there was a study that was done by UNCTAD and UNECA. By actually excluding even 3%, you are excluding quite a significant tariff lines. So we need actually the youth, once you have this information, I am aware from the study that I read, many of the youth actually don't know about the FCFTA, that you could make noise and make sure that we liberalize 100% and we have free movement of goods and services, and we also get free movement of young people. And I think actually there's a program in Europe that is called Erasmus, where, for example, students from Germany go to study in Sweden. So we would like to see students from Tanzania, for example, studying in Ghana and Nigeria. West Africans eat a lot of rice, by the way, and they buy their rice from Asia. And Tanzania has very good rice from Magugu rice, Mbeya rice, very aromatic. You cook a little bit like this, it swells like this. You can feed quite many people. So basically, Africa Fair, when you go to, for example, hotels in everywhere, including Africa, you find Nescafe. But Africa Fair is very good coffee. Anybody who has tasted Africa Fair doesn't drink anything else, actually. So we need the Tanzanian youth to be selling this. So basically, where are we in terms of start of trading?
Yes.
As you are aware, we were supposed to start trading last year in July. It was postponed because of the pandemic. Then we had an extraordinary summit on 5th December 2020, where they launched the trading 1st January 2021. Also because of the pandemic, it didn't happen. But there's good news. Bad news is always followed by good news and vice versa. So we have a ministerial directive on the application of schedules of tariff concession. So we have 29 actually state parties who are ready to trade. These 29, the latest is Zimbabwe that brought their tariff offer. And to reiterate, EAC is not among the 29. So hopefully, before end of the month, November, we will have. And basically, my colleague earlier spoke about we have 87.3% of tariff rates that have been agreed on the rules of origin. But it doesn't matter because the tariff that we are liberalizing is 90%. So for the remaining 12.97%, we are going to use the REC rules. So for example, if you are from Nigeria and you want to sell to Tanzania, you will look at the EAC rules of origin if that product is not covered. And if it's not there, then you use the most favored nation, which is actually global. So basically, there are a number of areas that are labor intensive, textiles, auto industry. And let me say that Rwanda, that when you mentioned, Rwanda actually has an auto strategy. They are coming in very strongly. Tanzania could also actually plug in because nickel is used, leather, etc. How do we get the rest of Africa? Because we have South Africa and Morocco that are key in these sectors. You have Kenya coming up, Rwanda and Ghana. So hopefully, I was told, and I don't know how true, that the AAAM, the Auto Association of Manufacturers, also came to Tanzania, and they wanted to develop an auto strategy for Tanzania. So hopefully, this can be done. We already have the trading documents because once actually the tariffs have been agreed to, what needs to happen? You have these trading documents, so we have a certificate of origin ready, origin declaration, suppliers, etc., trade facilitation, and it was mentioned before you reach the border, when you're moving from point A to point B, what happens? And also, let me point out that the FCFTA is the framework agreement. implementation is done at national level. So the youth, you need to talk to your members of parliament, etc., to make sure these agreements are implemented effectively. Africans are very good at talking, but not at implementing. Let's change the mindset and the scenario. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. We're so good at talking, but not implementing.
To know, hit it where it hurts most. But sometimes it's okay to say so. I'm surprised, Your Excellency, that we are not part of the 29 countries, regions that are ready to trade. Yep. So over to you, sir. You want to jump in a little bit? I'm going to hold you to account here, sir. Why isn't the East African community...
But the trading started when he was...
The 28, the 29.
When he had already handed over power.
So do you want to make a comment on that?
Can I answer on his behalf?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, please.
Please.
Okay.
Dr. Mathuki.
You can use the microphone, please.
Samahani sana, Dr. Mathuki. No, actually, EAC has already submitted their offer, but they have gone back to the table to reach 90%. And they are ready, actually, they're at 88. So I'm sure that 2% maybe this week will be done. So EAC is there, I think. Yeah.
We can't wait. We can't wait for sure. At least we are 87.3% of the tariffs in, including East African countries, I believe. So we're crossing fingers for the 12.97%.
Certainly.
Right.
Let's hope that we can do that as fast as we can.
All right. And now would like to go to our virtual panelists as well. We have Dr. Alex Owiti, and we also have Mr. Mustafa Njie, who is the president and CEO of Tough Africa Global. He's coming to us from the Gambia and with us virtually. Mr. Mustafa, I wanted to hear from you, particularly in regard to issues to do with your experience as a business person who's done business not just in West Africa, but across the African continent. I mean, despite having a primarily energetic demographic that we have today that has the potential to shift Africa's fortunes, we seem to be far off from industrializing and, of course, battling high levels of underemployment, like one of the co-curators said in his presentation. So how do we channel our energies in the right direction? And what exactly is the missing link? Because despite the fact that we have the potential, we have the energy, we have the population, there's something that's missing. From your perspective, what could that be, and how do we channel it in the right direction?
Well, thank you very much. Let me first start by giving my appreciation for inviting me into this panel. And unfortunately, I couldn't make it to Arusha. I wish I could. But straight to your point, I want to make reference to previous speakers. For example, what His Excellency said, Dr. Jakaya Kikwete, that Africa consumes what it doesn't grow or grows what it doesn't consume. But I want to now go back on the main reason why these things are happening in Africa, but more focusing on education. I think Africa's biggest problem today is on our curriculum. And I want to say this by giving you an example, of myself. As you can see in the text, I am being called the youth man, but obviously with this, you can see that I'm much older than being a youth. Education is a major problem in Africa, apart from leadership. So as we debate more, these things will come up. But I think the missing link in Africa today is our curriculum. And I want to share some figures. I'm not sure in the different countries that you are in, but I want to share some figures in our own country, the Gambia. A population of 2 million people, the kids that go to school, that enter school every year, and this is records were on 2018, it was 350,000 kids that got enrolled. Now, at 12, when they graduated from what they call lower basic school, it was only roughly 50% that made it into middle school. And then high school, those who graduated from high school, it was only 18%. University in the Gambia, only 0.4%. Now, these youth who are today in this forum, I don't think you represent the majority of those youth who are more or less dropouts. And for me, that's Africa's biggest problem. We are producing or educating, training, the professionals that we don't need and leaving out those that we need most. I come from a construction background and I run, obviously, a construction business. I left school at the age of 18 and I was very fond of carpentry. And basically what made me successful was because I followed my passion as a carpenter. Today we registered in 8 African countries. And as you can see behind me on my screen, we are now developing Africa's biggest smart and green city. But I didn't go to university to be able to do this. I'm not shunning going to university. But we need to look at these. I think Africa's major problem is on training. Because today, I'm sure if you were to do a census of those who are connected virtually, and also in the hall, most of you are university graduates, but you're not the majority of the youth that are in all these countries. So, very short is that we need to train for what we need. And I am an advocate that we need hard skills. We need to look at the policies that will train the youth on hard skills. The other missing links, whilst we have all these policies, for example, on the African continental free trade area, I cannot but say something about it. Because I should be in Durban on Monday. There is the Intra-African Trade Fair, which is based on the African Free Trade, Continental Free Trade Area, being promoted by the Afri-Exim Bank. But because I have a Gambian passport, I am finding it so difficult to get into South Africa. To get a visa to go to South Africa, despite my position and being a sponsor of this, I have to travel to Dakar, from Gambia to Dakar, to get a passport for South Africa. And as I talk to you today, up to now, I haven't got my visa. Now, I don't know whether any of you saw Aliko Dangote. We all know Aliko Dangote as the richest black man. He said something similar. He was supposed to travel to South Africa with some of his staff, but one of his staff had a passport of, I think it was of England or America. And with that passport, he didn't need a visa. Now, but Aliko Dangote, having a Nigerian passport, needed a visa. And this, people like us have said it over and over and over again, that unless these are eliminated very quickly, these are all impediments that will foster trade. I know you spoke about industrialization, but my missing link in industrialization is mainly on training for what we need to industrialize, and that is hard skills. I will stop there for now, and then I have more, but I'll allow probably other speakers to come on before I come back again. Thank you.
Training for something that we don't need. Yesterday over dinner, you and I and other colleagues met a very brilliant young man, 16 years old. Very brilliant young man. This young man came to us and said, I'm in senior 4, but I just want to go and do
biomedical
engineering. And he has already started a prototype of coming up with an incubator,
yeah.
a baby incubator. He wants to start manufacturing baby incubators. And he said, you know what, I'm feeling bad that there are many children who are dying because they are born premature. But now I want to start up, with this innovation. This guy was so brilliant. And Joy and I and the team that we're having dinner with, we're looking at this 16-year-old talking to us about starting an incubator. We're like, how old are you again?
Biomedical engineering.
I want to do biomedical
That's his
engineering.
passion.
But then he's not interested in going to senior 6 and then going to university.
Right.
He wants to concentrate on that. And so I told Joy the challenge that this boy has right now is that society calls him that he has to go through up to Form 6 and then goes to university, and then he perhaps there he can start thinking of doing his bioengineering. And that's what he was talking about.
Yep.
That the education system of this continent needs to change. We were studying, Your Excellency, I grew up studying Canadian prairies. The combined harvesters.
And I studied
the
about
yes.
the French Revolution.
Exactly, the French Revolution. I grew up talking about what? New York and all those other countries.
Alps.
The Swiss Alps. But am I using them now? You know, is it time to say, like what Mustafa is saying, for us to have a conversation around our training and our skill set that we have to have as a country, Joe?
We need relevant hard skills, and that's what Mr. Njeo was talking about. So we need to look at the policies that will train on hard skills. And we possibly will have a separate conversation about STEM, because it's so important to have STEM. Of our global population, we have 17%. Africa represents 17% of the global population, but only 25 or even less than 25% of African students are involved in STEM subjects or STEM institutions of learning. What does that say about us industrializing? How long is it going to take before we can industrialize if our young people are either interested in STEM but are not given the resources or are not really increasing the uptake? So it's up upon us as Africans. Let's challenge ourselves to do more of this so we can industrialize in the future. And I love what
you
Mr.
said
Mustafa
STEM.
said.
Some people may not understand STEM.
STEM is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Sorry for abbreviating it. But I want to bring onto the conversation as well Dr. Alex Awiti. Dr. Alex Awiti is the Vice Provost at the Aga Khan University, and he also happens to have a wealth of knowledge when it comes to institutional memory and the African curriculum, as well as the East African community as well. And Dr. Awiti, if you would allow me, I would like to use your expertise at various levels of the education hierarchy. What wrongs do we need to right in terms of making sure that we get this right? That going forward, we're not going to come back here next year crying about what we failed to do this year.
Thank you very much. It is a pleasure to be here, and I want to recognize the presence of His Excellency Jakaya Kikwete and other distinguished colleagues. I think, you know, we risk simplifying a very complex problem. This, as we call it in academia, this is a wicked problem. You raise very critical questions about curriculum, you raise very critical questions about what the continent needs, what the youth of this continent needs, what the education infrastructure and the policy apparatus that basically create that ecosystem should do. These are not simple questions, and that's the reason why these are still festering conversations. And President Kikwete has been in government, led the Tanzanian Republic, where I'm sitting right now in Dar es Salaam, for 10 years. And he has been involved in senior government leadership for a much longer time. These are not very easy conversations. There's a path dependence to every country on the continent. Some boast that they are of French extraction, others are a colonial past of the British. We have the Portuguese on the continent, and we have everything else in South Africa. So we need to be very respectful to where we find ourselves, and we need to understand with a lot of humility the challenges that lie ahead of us. It is not either or. It is not get all the kids in technical vocational school. It is not get all the kids and train them in a neoliberal or a liberal education model that creates all the critical skills around engineering, mathematics, biomedical sciences, etc. It's got to be something in between. But the other question is, who defines what Africa needs? Who defines what each society needs? And I think we need to be very, very careful. There is no such a place as Africa. There are many, many parts of this continent that has many, many parts of societies and many, many parts of subnationalities that have critical development gaps, that have critical opportunities that could leapfrog their development. So we need to be very careful. I come from Kenya, and I would tell you that the education that is needed in Northern Kenya is not the education that I would prescribe for a child who lives in Nairobi. Education is about creating efficacy and capability to live and solve problems in your environment. So there is no such a thing as a national curriculum. And this is where we always go wrong, where we create a process of a hegemonic curriculum infrastructure that is called the national government, the Ministry of Education, that prescribes curriculum for every child in that country and creates a one-size-fits-all and believes that the end of that pipeline is maybe tertiary education. So I think where we go wrong is that so many years after the colonies left, our education systems are still a mirror image of the intention and the heinous motives of the colonists. There are many people like myself who have just refused to think and basically create a different order for our continent. And it is to everyone who has an education and a PhD title like myself who have failed this continent, who have failed to challenge the path dependence that we are on, which was launched by the colonies, who have failed to ask questions about the relevance of standardized tests, which then create these crazy outcomes of kids failing and others not failing, and therefore others drop out in class 6 or grade 4, and others proceed to universities and become people like myself. So I think this idiotic simplification of a human talent pipeline is the critical failure of our education system. So we need to challenge ourselves. The colonies left so many years ago. We cannot sit here and blame our colonial heritage. We have failed our continent, and each of us needs to go and think about what is right for their countries, what is right for the sub-nationalities in their countries, and begin to challenge these notions of a national curriculum and a nationalized standardized test, because these often do not work. Look at the United States, for instance. Why is there no entrance exam into university in the United States? Why do you have the states that basically try to solve their own problems? How do we begin to create more devolved systems of government that create an opportunity and a pathway for individuals and sub-national governments to solve local problems, and therefore ask the critical question about what would be a curriculum to teach to pastoralists? That's not the same curriculum that you teach to sedentary agronomists. That's not the same curriculum that you teach to kids who are basically in an urban ecosystem. There has to be a general framework of education, a general philosophical underpinning, but the specifics that create functional, efficacious human beings has to be a very, very different conversation. So I think this is where we need to go back. I hate to simplify solutions and say curriculum is a problem, or say the delivery of the curriculum is a problem. I think we need to be more respectful and avoid oversimplification of very, very complex problems.
What Africa needs. And given the fact that we have fragmented societies, but we now live in a generation where today's young people are probably smarter than their teachers. And while we're talking about, fragmenting education and saying if this is a pastoralist community, they should be educated this way, I think what the Internet of Things has taught us is that these young people are probably one step ahead of their teachers. How do we move forward with this momentum that these young people are setting for us without having to push them back with the potential that they're capable of?
No, my point is really about the relevance of education. So the larger question should not be reduced to pastoralists, which is the example that I gave, but I say the question really is, what do young people need to know to be effective in their societies? Of course, there's a universe of knowledge, but there's the specificities of the skills that they need to function in those societies. And the primary point of interrogation should be, what do those societies need? And I'm saying that this should not be the hegemony of a national government in a distant capital making those kinds of decisions. We need to be confident that local leaders and local people can basically make their own decisions to solve their own problems. Of course, there's going to be some kind of universal element. Math is math, biology is biology. but the application of those discrete disciplines has to be relevant to the problems that are local in the polities and the geographies where individuals find themselves. So it is not for some authority to dictate curriculum.
Right.
It is for subnational polities to be able to think for themselves. And I think the Tanzanian government model, the regional structure of the Tanzanian polity is a place to start to think from. Kenya has gone through devolution, but they need to go deeper to basically enable local governments to make local decisions.
All right. Thank you so much for that, Dr. Alex Owiti, who is...
to think about, Joy.
Absolutely. Yeah. The Vice Provost at Aga Khan University. We have Dr. Joy Kategekwa also, who is joining us virtually. And she brings in the perspective of, the UNDP and its programs, but also realistic solutions. So, Dr. Joy, if you can hear us, for a while now, Africa has been rising and certainly continues to do so. But of course, there are questions as to whether we're doing so at the expected pace, considering a fast-growing youthful population. So as we usher in the possibilities of what the continental free trade area can bring on board for us, have we really addressed the underlying issues? And we would not want to make this a complaining platform. We want to look at solutions and look at realistic solutions. What would work for us given the conditions that we have, given our level of development?
Thank you very much, Joy. And there's quite a few joys in this conversation. So it's a pleasure to meet you as well. When you talk about Africa rising, it's a very interesting phenomenon because we all remember that, I don't know if to call it a stylized fact or something of a factual reality around the lions on the move. We often spoke pre-COVID about the 10 fastest growing economies in the world being from Africa. We celebrated Ethiopia, Uganda, Cote d'Ivoire, Ghana, Senegal. Some of these countries were also growing at double digit. So if the question is Africa growing sufficiently enough, of course tempered with the contextual distinctions that have to be taken into account, because Africa is not only those 10 countries. But if we talk about the fact whether there was a momentum, a pace setter, a move that gave promise, I think it is true indeed that Africa is rising from the perspective of GDP growth. Now, the question though is, you say, is it growing fast enough? The numbers must educate us. What do the analysts say? The analysts tell us that in order to attain the SDGs, and indeed the Africa we want out of Agenda 2063, we should be growing at about, 7%. So if you talk about, lions on the move, moving at double digit and growing in the range of 9% and so on and so forth, 10, even more, then you see that there's a trend that gives hope. It gives you the impression that something is happening on the continent and that thing is positive. But let us unpack that and ask the question, what was propelling that growth? And who was involved in that growth? And there we will go to the point around what should we do. What was propelling that growth? The commodity boom? The idea that Africa is the commodity base of the world, that you will sell your cocoa, you'll sell your lint, you will sell your gold, you'll sell your uranium, you'll sell your coltan that makes these cool mobile phones that we all hold. What happens with those prices, in a sense, determines the entirety of the future of the 1.2 billion people that we talk about on the African continent. In addition to that, we've said that when you engage in international trade, from the perspective of I give you the material, the raw material, you essentially are taking a policy decision to say, I will not be involved in wealth creation. I will not be involved in prosperity creation, because the attraction of value is not in the base, it's in the value addition. And so Africa must break this cycle, this structural cycle that keeps you at pushing the raw materials. The next question then is, who was benefiting from this? Because the base is raw materials and commodities, those are typically enclave. Those are not the types that employ the vast majority of people. And therefore, at UNCTAD, and I had the opportunity and the pleasure to lead the work of UNCTAD in Africa for the last 5 years prior to coming to UNDP. And so I know that at UNCTAD, we describe that as the decade of jobless growth. It means that for the most part, the people that we talk about as Africa's youth, Africa's women, Africans, we're spectating at these big numbers, this double-digit growth. And therein lies the problem. How can the AFCFTA be a solution? And what do we need to do differently? We always talk about the fact that GDP is great because it shows you you're rising, you're moving. But someone once said you can't eat GDP. And I think in a simple sense, what they were saying is that we're not part of that story. So to make Africans part of that story, I'd like to make the case that the AFCFTA can be part of that. But in order to do that, we need to use the AFCFTA as the instrument that structurally changes the continent's way of engaging in inter-African trade, but in global trade as well, i.e., let us add value on the continent. Rather than thinking about the cocoa beans, we must produce the entire gamut, not only ending at chocolate, but cocoa butter, and all of the entirety of cosmetics and production chains that go in there. And the story is as good for cocoa as it would be for textiles and clothing, as it would be for leather. Incidentally, at UNDP, together with the AFCFTA Secretariat, we're just about to launch a report that talks about which value chains for a Made in Africa revolution. When you look at what's emerging in the AFCFTA, you see that these are precisely where the markets are opening. Textiles and clothing, leather, pharmaceuticals, automobiles, and so on and so forth. So we have to find a way to invest in those sectors where the people are, where the people can be, where it is not that idea of the enclave. When we do that, that is the first step to progress. The second step is to say, how can governments conspire, connive, intentionally work to make sure that exporters succeed? We're not talking only about trade facilitation at the border. We're talking about how can Tanzania say that for us, our niche is XYZ in this AFCFTA market. And in order to get there, we're taking on a pledge, a commitment to ensure that for the next 18 months, for example, we are going to dismantle all the regulatory barriers that get in the way of Tanzanian exporters trying to seize the One Africa market. In a dispensation where Africa doesn't have money to give the stimulus check, the regulations can be a stimulus. And so that is the second point. The third point is then to say, how do we go to the fundamentals? The fundamental is really about the infrastructure of trade, the infrastructure that supports trade. We're talking logistics, communication, transport, finance. Incidentally, these are the 5 priority sectors that have been selected for the initial market opening in the AFCFTA dispensation. And therefore there is promise, there is hope. It will not be automatic. It has to be pushed for by the youth. The youth have to take a decision to create those businesses, to create those products, to push for the environments that are supportive of them, and of course then to create those products that we can all proudly buy and be made in Africa proud. Thank you very much.
Go to the East African Business Council. And let me talk to Mr. John Bosco Kalisa. I'm sorry, I'm going to be a bit shrewd on you, sir. And I'm going to put on my journalism jacket for just a second, but just for the purposes of us to advance the conversation. We're all here talking about the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. But let's look at the regional blocks in the first step, right? We have the East African Common Markets, protocol that was signed. All excited about this one regional market. And along the way, we've had challenges. And for some of us who come from the East African Community region, we know what has been happening. There's been a trade war, and it would be unfair for me to leave this mic without asking this question, sir. We've been having a trade, for example, Uganda has been having a trade war with Kenya. We know what's been happening. I mean, our maize, some of our agriculture products have been refused. It happened too with Kenya and Tanzania. We know what is happening. I'm not talking something new, sir. We know what's happening between Uganda and Rwanda. We know what's happening. So the question is, can we continue putting our heads under the sand and pretend that this is not happening? And we are preaching the Africa Continental Free Trade Area when we have issues happening at a regional block. How do you convince me, sir, that this is going to happen?
The rest of it, yeah.
Thank you very much, moderator. I know it's a very challenging question, but with the wisdom accorded to me by His Excellency and the Honorable Peter Mathuki, I will attempt to address that. And again, before I go into trade wars, let me first commend and thank our politicians, our leaders, for embracing the CFTA. They have embraced, they have signed. 5 out of 6 have submitted instrument of ratification. That's a very great milestone. And I want really, through you, Your Excellency, to convey my appreciation. Generally, the latest one was the United Republic of Tanzania that ratified it recently. So this is a clear demonstration that East Africa is ready for CFTA. Again, before COVID, the fastest growing economies in the world, the 10 fastest growing, 3 were coming from East Africa. Guess which one? Anyone from the room? The youth. You are the youth in the business. You need to first thing to be updated in terms of information. Who can answer those 3 one? Fastest growing before COVID, 2019. The fastest growing economies in the world, the 3 were coming from East Africa. Which ones? Then you don't read. That is you failed the exam. Now you are complaining. It's all Rwanda, Tanzania, and Ethiopia. That demonstrates our commitment to integration, to our commitment to make a change in this world, that we can do it. And when you look at the growth, that growth was anchored through infrastructure investment, and you can witness it here in Tanzania. Private consumption, that was one of the drivers of our growth in the region. Then our commitment to regional integration. Despite those trade tensions you are mentioning, trade wars that are happening, but trade, the region has been the fastest growing region compared to other legs. It is on record that ESC, as even today, we are ahead of other 8 legs in terms of our integration. And when you look at the recent report, again read the report published by UNECA and African Union, it looked at the 5 fundamental areas. One was infrastructure, the level of regional integration, the movement of persons, how we facilitate the movement of persons. Here we sit here in Tanzania. Myself, I'm not Tanzania, but it used to take 3 months to get a visa. But now you can get your visa and a work permit in a span of only 5 days. You apply online. So the miracle we are using, even before I attempt to address the issue of trade tension, is that there is a strong commitment and there is strong political will. Despite this tension, but that political will is driving the integration, is driving it prosperity. So coming to your question, yeah, there are those issues, and that is the challenge we are addressing as the EABC. Mm-hmm. The issues of political competition does not help us. We need to complement each other than competing. It's like dwarfs going to compete with Torrand. So the issue we need to address now, how do we support our economies? How do we support our businesses? How do we support our youth? In terms of driving the integration, in terms of deriving the benefit from the regional integration, from the continental level. That's why I'm saying the CFTA is a game changer. It's a game changer on 3 important issues, and I want to mention them. One is that the CFTA is putting forward the women and the youth to take the leading role.
Right.
That is one. The 2, to address issues of trade information, what we call information asymmetry. And this URID is a testimony that we're addressing the gaps in our trade information. The 3rd one, which is very critical, and we're working on it, EABC, is trade finance. All this innovation cannot happen when our cost of finance is extremely high. That is an issue that needs to be addressed if we want to drive our competitiveness, if we want to support the youth in innovation. Those are very important message. Lastly, which is very critical, and I happen to go to East Asia and why they developed quicker than our African countries is what they call competence bureaucracy. Competence bureaucracy. Here we have what we call incompetence bureaucracy. Our trade facilitation agents are trade hindrance agents. That's why you can see those trade tensions. Instead of facilitating trade, they are hindering trade. So we need to make a mindset shift, a mindset change among our trade officers. And I'm happy that my brother, Honorable Peter, he puts in front the private sector to take a leading role to address those challenges. And he has created a hotline that whoever wants to delay trade because he's seeking for a bribe, he has to call direct to his office. We are doing the same. So ESC is working, EABC is working, and we will make a change. We will achieve 52% intra-regional trade within 5 years if we remain with that political momentum, political commitment, and we continue to drive and engage with each other, complementing our efforts. I thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. John Bosco Kalisa, who is the CEO at the East Africa Business Council. Talk about trade finance and talking about competence bureaucracy, and then flipping it and saying what we have is incompetency bureaucracy. And I think that, I agree, is the biggest challenge we have on the African continent, not just the East African bloc. I think that all our blocs are struggling with this, including the Southern Africa, trading bloc as well. Richard, I'm going to bring you in, Mr. Richard Sewa Chirianga. We are now at a point in Africa where the young are demanding better from their leaders and are saying nothing is for us without us. As curator of the Arusha Debates, what role do you think these debates are going to play in making sure that young people's voices are heard? Because on several occasions, we have seen young people policies being put out without youth participation. They don't have a say in policies that are framed for us, or we don't have a say in policies that are framed for us. How do we make sure that what we want is what is in the policies, and how can these debates help to push for that agenda?
Thank you very much, Joy and Solomon, for steering us very well. I think that is the first thing to say. But also, I think we really want to thank all the panelists for their provocative as well as very educative perspectives that you shared. But for me, I think that, yes, the Arusha debates then become an important ingredient in the self-discovery of Africa, because it is a place where we want to discuss solutions and come up with solutions. I think the thing is that I know that somebody said we should move quickly from theory to practice, but you see, the most dangerous thing to do is to practice what you haven't thought about. And we must make sure that Africa, practices things that are well thought through. So I think the investment in debate, in exploring solutions, is the kind of intervention that this Arusha debates really wants to bring about. And so the issue of, for example, saying how then do young people play a role in the policies that are, designed on the continent. One way of doing that is really by creating what we call the cross-generational dialogues, where young people can speak about what they think they want to put on the table, and those who may be older can also, explore what kinds of things that can be done. I mean, Mr. Mustafa has told us about the kind of solutions and journeys that he has gone through to create an important, industry, a construction company. We have heard about the kinds of things we need to do around the curriculum and why we need to interrogate that. We have had Joy giving us very good perspectives around this whole notion of what kinds of metrics should we use, GDP, and how it helps and doesn't help. Now, those kinds of debates must go on this continent. And I think that for me, I would hope that maybe in the next ULEAD summit, we should ask that it's a ULEAD summit without negativity Nobody saying anything bad about Africa. And we see if we can sustain a 3-hour conversation where we only speak good and well about Africa. Because I think that those are the kinds of things that may help to push Africa forward. You know, and as you know, yes, we can talk about all our problems, but we have many solutions. And even just listening, the notes I've taken here, I can see that there's a lot that is out there that we should latch on. So really, for me, for us, which I think is a great idea, what MSTCDC and other partners have put together, is that Arusha Debates is helping us to really do the intellectual landscaping so that we can build an Africa on a landscape that is meaningful, that really engages with the reality of today, that does not leave any generation out, but also that helps us to really shape what we are thinking about. I think for me, that's where these kinds of discussions come in. And Joy, let me stop there, knowing that you know, we are really past time, but thank you very much for this. Thank you.
About what they're not happy about the African continent, but it's a challenge. We're going to take this on to the Arusha Debates of 2022. Hopefully we can sustain a 3-hour event where nobody complains about Africa, but celebrates and appreciates the good that's happening here. We also have our online audience as well that is making contributions. They're from over 21 African countries. A round of applause to our virtual participants.
We have participants from South Sudan, the Gambia, Somalia, Tanzania, Egypt, Nigeria, Burundi, Mozambique, Zimbabwe. We have participants from the United States of America, Rwanda, Liberia,
is that in Africa?
Malawi, Morocco, and Algeria.
It's the USA in Africa.
No, I said that we have participants there.
Right, great. It's with that person.
Yeah, so but several views and comments have been coming through, and I thought we could sample some of those. And so, Joy, if you could allow me, we have a comment here from Wiki Bentui from South Sudan. He says that our biggest problem as African youth is that we seek jobs but do not create jobs. Education is not all about to get employment, but to innovate and to learn beyond just the university. And she's coming in through from South Sudan, Joy.
All right. We also have an opinion from Rwanda. And Sheila Matthew is asking a question. Mr. Njia speaks about gaining hard skills for youth. Majority of us are attending the forum are fresh university graduates. And yet, on job requirements, they tend to ask for individuals with years of experience. Normally, more than 2 years. How can we, the youth, start gaining these skills if the jobs requirements are of such kind? Recruiters need to make the necessary changes. They look at the youths, and I think that's something that needs to be fixed. Probably apprenticeships need to be encouraged more on the African continent as well.
All right, we have another one, and this is James Makwak from Juba in South Sudan. Says, considering common market area in the region as a key to promote trade in the East African community and wider, it is clear that economic muscles are not equal, but in terms of productivity and policy governing trade and investment. To what extent does this forum influence trade governing authorities to create a unifying, equal, and equitable policy favoring trade of every young person to explore their creative ideas and come to their full potential?
Right. And Bridget Chiponda, who I'm thinking is from Zambia, said, remember how I said I was wearing Made in Africa?
Is it from Zambia?
She's saying we need a Made in Africa award competition to promote this. You lead and Arusha Debates. Could you consider this? I think I'm going to pass this over to Ivan and Richard to make sure that this happens next year. We can have a Made in Africa award ceremony as well to appreciate Made in Africa products.
Wow.
How does that sound?
It sounds great. And I was
Right.
so happy to hear that whatever you're putting on today, besides the shoes, is
We'll
made
talk
from
about
Africa.
that later.
Sheila Matthew is saying, very powerful opinion, having exchange students in universities within the East African region and beyond, and this can increase the level of education and gaining multiple skills from various backgrounds. There are a little bit more that are needed. Thank you very much, Dr. Halima. This is Sheila Matthew.
All right. We have an audience here, and we don't want to zip their lips and not allow them to give their own opinions.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
we're going to take
Exactly.
opinions from our audience, and we're going to take them in this order. We are going to take the first set, 2 young ladies, 2 young gentlemen, and quick, fast, please. We don't need background. We just need straight to the point questions, like the young people that we are. So here we go. I'm going to start here. I promised. I've made true my promise.
Your Excellency, all distinguished guests, good evening or good afternoon. My name is Kathia from South Sudan. So I have some comments, by the way. When it comes to the Africa that I envision, I see an Africa where there will be no food insecurity. So I believe that we should empower the youth to be economically empowered. That means grant them skills, like training skills on business, financial skills. Because if they don't have that, how will they be able to sustain even their own businesses? So they need that knowledge. And the next point is, these youth need to be empowered to join the agricultural sector. They need to be farmers. Imagine, let me tell you about myself. I hold a second-class honors, bachelor's degree in law. But guess what? I am a farmer, and I'm very proud of that. Because I believe that in South Sudan, there is a lot of food insecurity. And I'm trying my best to solve that problem. And as here, you youth here, you have the power. And don't look at yourself, don't look at your degrees, but look at the problem that you want to solve for your different countries. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Your Excellency, Dr. Jakaya Mrisho Kikwete. My name is Geoffrey Julius. I'm so glad and honored to be in front of you today. But I want to address one thing right here, that the problem that we have, particularly in Africa, we don't understand the foundation that we're trying to rebuild. And the policymakers, now we need to, should them tell us, I mean, they should tell us the exactly that we need to put, to show exactly what on the ground, and how they can be able to solve their problems. Because the young people, the truth is, we are striving ourselves. There's no money on the table. And we need exactly support, the true support that from you on how we can be able to prosper, to make this dream to become true. Actually, in Africa, there's a huge young people that they have a true potentials, but the problem that no money. And these forums that we are trying always to be involved in is actually helping us, trying to unlock our potential, our inner gifts, but what exactly we need to, how can be groomed? This potential need to be groomed, and not only teaching, learning, but we need to see the actual support. Now, I want to end up to conclude on this way, that instead of pushing this agenda to Europeans supporting these forums, the government, Africa governments should think on how they can try to donate the young people potentials. And we need to have our own money to become true in Africa. Thank you so much.
All right, we have a question here. We're trying to balance the rows.
Okay.
And countries. Yes, we have a gentleman here.
Thank you very much, Joy. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Mine will not necessarily be a question, but a comment from what I've listened in. When Mrisho Kikwete, first before I go there, I am Muisio Musila. I am an activist, a member from Kenya, and I'm a graduate engineer, electrical engineering. Mrisho Kikwete said that this debate should focus on moving from complaining to offering solutions, so adding value. But from what I've listened from the panelists, Some of them have even put further the conversation around complaints, how the African education system has failed us, how what other issues have been a problem. And we've not offered idealistic solutions to all those problems. I want to speak from the context of Kenya. As we speak today, there is a TVET Act. TVET is Technical and Vocational Education and Training. There is an Act of Parliament of 2013 that says the government should invest in TVETs. So have at least a TVET in each sub-county. The government should ensure that those TVETs have modern equipment for training, so that when Mustafa Njay says we need to train African youth on our skills, we have it outright in the TVET. We don't necessarily have to go to universities like myself, who is a graduate engineer, study for 5 years, and come out only as a theorist, as a philosopher. Because we have to offer African solutions the African way. We understand that we have a rich African youth, and these rich African youth must first be invested on by structures that really work for them, before we start to ask them to start businesses when they do not have the applicability because they were only given theories. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. If I actually thought twice, I'd think that you'd also a rapper.
Thank you.
But thank you for those opinions. Solomon, could you take up another lady?
Thank you so much. My name is Sheila, and I work for Action Aid International Uganda. So by default, I come from Uganda. I would like to categorically put it clear, and this is a concern, and I would like to first bring it out, probably before we go into the real discussion. One is that my expectation of the U-Lead, if you asked me, was that young people, the majority in this room, were going to meaningfully engage, and therefore our time was going to be 80-20. That means that the policymakers, the development partners, governments, non-state actors are going to sit here, listen to us, and that would form the agenda for discussion. However, I still want to trust that whatever we've been discussing here is very important, but maybe we should have adopted another approach. If you notice, if you read the mood meter, I don't know if you saw how the young people switched off from the room. And that is what I expected us, because those are the peculiar challenges that young people have been grappling with individually in different countries. And we came to this space because this is our space, because we wanted to seize it. But do you know what? I am worried that that has not yet happened for the 2 days. And that is why the silence of these young people should signal to all of us that there is a problem. Who is driving the agenda? That said and done, the most dangerous creation of any society is literally a man who has nothing to lose, and that is James Baldwin. Now, to bring you just to touch base, we've been talking about the beautiful agreements here. I want to imagine, I've not yet read it comprehensively. I don't know how many of you have seen the agreement? They do not even understand the conversations that we are talking about, let alone the 66% who are not in this room, who are illiterate, who are living below the poverty line, who do not have access to information. I want to imagine that the agreement is going to solve the issues of hyper inequalities, what we call the economic gap, to address the issue of the digital divide. Ladies and gentlemen, you will agree with me that COVID is beyond a health crisis. It has exposed our social, it has exposed our economic and political spaces. That means that we need to shift as a nation, as a continent, as young people who are here. Let's take the mantle. And that is why I stand to tell you that the issues of climate change, right now there are discussions in COP26. And do you know what is happening there? The issues that are going to be talked about, or the issues that have already come out, is that countries are going to start tracking what we call a management system, tracking commitments and seeing how best can we finance climate adaptation rather than mitigation. Where are the young people in that conversation? But we are here comfortably talking about how we have invented ABCD. Beautiful. The question should be, how many of the young people that are here who come from rural Uganda, who come from rural Kenya, who are faced with the daily challenges, where are their voices? Are the policies that we make as East African community, do they represent the interest of the people? We do not, right now, 12% increase has been slapped on us on data. We are talking about so many things. We're talking about interest rates of 15 to 25%. Ladies and gentlemen, how does a young person borrow who has a capital of less than 10 million, 5 million, let alone 1 million, graduates? So I want to imagine that the key takeaway from this summit is that we are going to have a reflection. I also expected, and I'm happy that the members of parliament are here. Listen to me, my members of parliament from Uganda. I want you to go and talk about the topical and pertinent issues that come from the ULEAD in the Parliament of Uganda and make policies that are pro-poor. Otherwise, enjoying first-class flights is not going to pick people out of poverty. We're just, Professor, just finally, Professor Mamdani said of Makerere University, because that's our university, is that South Africa is not just, I think, a collection of people. We just found ourselves, you know, so we do not understand. Who told you that Africa must define poverty using economic indicators? I submit.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that.
Wow. Mr. Ivan Atuyambe, you've heard it from the young people. This is what the Arusha Debate is about.
The young people have their needs, and these needs need to be met. So, to begin with, our politicians, we challenge you to go back to your houses, your national assemblies, and please formulate laws to implement policies that work for us as young people, right?
Can I add something, Joy? She said something that just got to my heart. When she asked how many people have read the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement, the young people, how many of you have read it?
Even our members of parliament.
How many of you have read this? From our different, the MPs who are here, how many of you have read the Africa Continental Free?
From South Sudan. Members of parliament from South Sudan. Have we read the African Continental Free Trade Area? Our members of parliament from Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania.
What this points to, dear programs director, Mr. Ivan, is that we need to take this agreement to the people, not to be discussed here. To the young people, to the MPs, out of the room. Madam Noor, you've heard it from the people. We need to have a deliberate effort of taking this agreement from the conference room to the young people of East Africa and Africa at large. I think that's what I get from this, the voices that you've been hearing, Ma'am.
Right. So as we bring this to a close,
she wants to say something.
And I wanted Dr. Halima also to speak to this. How do we make this magic work? How do we make the African Continental Free Trade Area be youth involved? Because what we're seeing now is a top-bottom approach. Can we please have a bottom-up? Kenyans, please. This is not a political conversation.
The Kenyans are here, Joy.
Yes, can we really have realistic solutions that bring into the fore the youth participation? Because we are the population on this continent.
Asante sana, Joy. We hear you loud and clear. Before I answer Joy's question, let me say about dissemination and awareness raising. We are actually doing that, and in December we'll be in Dar es Salaam. We are working with Tanzania Chamber of Commerce, Industry and Agriculture to disseminate the information. In fact, the executive director, Ms. Judith Karangi, has told me she has talked to premier comedians, Mr. Joti and others. They are doing some clips actually on the FCFTA. And this is what came out here, that you want FCFTA in a language that's not too technical, that in a language that can be understood. And actually, it was mentioned that the agreement is in 4 languages. But maybe in Tanzania, when we are disseminating to SMEs, those people in the village, community radio, so communication strategy. We are developing a communication strategy at the FCFTA Secretariat. So basically, maybe we start, a one-size-fits-all doesn't work. So you start with one that is general, then country-specific becomes you use the common language. For example, in Tanzania, you'll have to use Swahili as well for it to work. So what is the FCFTA doing? I didn't mention in the beginning that we have actually a protocol on women and youth. So when you come out with a declaration from here, this would feed into that information, that space. When I read that, and anyway, I was part of the negotiations, what happened is when you start first coming up with the elements of negotiations, you would need to be at the table for your concerns to be taken on board. We are going to have a protocol on digital trade, protocol on competition policy that will look at how SMEs, because you know there's, for example, the most protected markets are cement, sugar, etc. in the African market, including ESC. Then we have on investment, and investment is investment facilitation. What kind of investments do we want? Local content example, and with local content, how are youth brought on board? I remember in Kenya, they have a policy of 30% for youth and women. So maybe also for this, when it comes to procurement, and this becomes a national, the FCFTA, as I mentioned, is a framework agreement. Implementation is at the national level. RECs are the building blocks, so RECs can also come in here and work on this, that the youth and women have a percentage in this in terms of procurement. Also, there's an adjustment fund. This will benefit state parties. When you liberalize trade, there are losers and winners. So Afri-Exim Bank actually and FCFTA Secretariat have created an adjustment fund to assist the countries. The modalities are being worked out. There's also going to be a Pan-African payment and settlement system. This you talked about in terms of if somebody is selling from Nigeria to Sierra Leone, the producer or the seller in Nigeria, the money will just be credited like an M-Pesa to the other side in local currency. And the guarantor is Afri-Exim Bank. So you see there are solutions. The FCFTA has created a framework agreement, but has come up with solutions. So coming back to the youth, let me talk about also private sector strategy, which is creating regional value chains. So the youth that you're here, pharmaceuticals, wellness industry, beauty. I watched CNN the other day, there was somebody from the West who is using seaweed for beauty products in Zanzibar. So this is one area, pharmaceutical, beauty industry, wellness, automobiles, I talked about it, and there's actually going to be created over 30 million jobs in the auto industry. Transport and logistics, agriculture and agro-processing. And Dr. Joy Kategekwa, who is my former actually colleague, we were in Geneva together as well, there's an NTB mechanism. When tariffs go down, non-tariff barriers go up. And you talked about the trade wars. Actually, it's because of NTB's competition, and it's the local actually traders who go to their government to try and stop the others from coming in. So the NTB reporting and elimination mechanism is an SCFTA framework that there are focal points in ministries. You can send an SMS if you are stuck at the border, for example, in Namanga, to say, I have been stopped here, etc. So this is a real solution. Then you have actually, we are creating an app. You use your phone to complain. We are going to have an Africa Gateway. So all information on trade, liberalization, etc., you will get there. You will also get rules of origin that have been agreed. So there are all these digital solutions we are coming with. So let me go now to the nitty-gritty about fund that you could talk about. In the AUC system, for example, we have youth volunteers. We are going to have that in the FCFTA. We also have interns. Unfortunately, interns are not paid. This is where now the poor kids cannot benefit from this, because it's only those parents that can afford can take their children as interns to the AUC or elsewhere. Then youth volunteers, these are associates. FCFTA Secretariat, we are going to have that as well, that the young people come in. You have Kofi Annan, may God rest his soul in peace, started as a youngster in the UN system. My former boss, Abduli Jane, started in a low position and rose to become the executive secretary. So we need actually to establish a youth fund that can help for, when we were talking of exchange students, to pay for those who cannot afford it. We need to take FCFTA to colleges and universities, that this is a course to be taught actually about the FCFTA. And we need to develop a culture of reading. So today, when you come to talk about FCFTA as a game changer, and you have not read about it, it's not going to be a game changer. It's going to stay in your cupboard as well, or wherever. So we need to develop that culture of reading. And we also need to strengthen FCFTA and national implementation committees. We talked about it. UNECA has developed an EAC strategy, for example. Joy, I see you are looking very agitated. Have I gone over time, or I can continue?
Yes, you have.
Okay, thank you so much. I'll stop here.
Thank you very much, Dr. Young people here they had you speak, and one of them tickled me, and I just want to give them an opportunity to raise some issues that you've just been raising here.
Thank you so much, Solomon. Though I'd given you the message, but let me deliver it myself. My name is Claire, once again from Kenya. And my challenge is actually in follow-up to the Action Aid lady. 30% to youth, persons with disability actually is what you left out, and women. So who handles the 70%? So, like, policies are made, yes. We are not involved. You come and present it to us, and then we go to those offices, and you still have to pay registration fees. You still have to pay taxes, like the 70% allocation given to I don't know who else. And it's so unfair. And I'm speaking like one, an entrepreneur in the IT sector. Two, like a volunteer project manager with a persons with disability organization. And three, as a representative of the Emerging Leaders Foundation, which is supported by the Bible Society of Kenya. So it's not just secular, it's also based on multi-sectoral. So we need to have deliberative decisions, deliberative programs, so that, say for example today, I gave this as a challenge for the programming of the summit. First session, speeches. Second session, deliberation. Third session, calls to action like what Leah had done earlier today. That way, by next year, we have involved youth who have actually taken part in social change in their countries, in other countries, and are held accountable by their fellow youth. We don't want to hold our leaders accountable, our older leaders accountable. We want to hold ourselves accountable as the pace setters of the next generation.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's Arusha Debates live from Arusha. Yeah. More views and comments. You'll take 1 minute. I'm so sorry, Ivan and Doreen. I feel like the young people are fired up and they need to be heard.
Fired up, and with His Excellency's permission, are we allowed to push by an extra 5 minutes?
Okay, cool.
Are we allowed to do that? Or maybe 1 hour?
Joy, one of the things that has come through here is that the young people feel like...
I wanted Dr. Halima to respond to her queries
Okay.
about the 70%, et cetera, et cetera.
Thank you. I won't answer about the 70. You remember what I said earlier? What I said is, and you mentioned that you have established a youth council. So you have actually an entry point because you have a voice and you've created something that can be an interlocutor with FCFTA Secretariat. I'll speak for FCFTA Secretariat, for example. And the 70 and 30, sorry, the 30, I gave the example of Kenya, and then I said 30%, but 30% is preferential treatment. You compete effectively on the 70%. So you'll have 30 plus. So you are in the 70% space, but something has been set aside for you, or for those that will not take advantage of the 70. 70 has not been set aside. So compete effectively in the 70%.
Equal access, equal opportunity.
All right. All right, we hear you. Equal access to equal opportunities. Can we give this young lady a round of applause?
Joy, the young people are speaking.
Young people are fired up.
Yeah.
Young people are fired up, but we are pressed for time.
Okay.
And
Can we
I'd
give
really love for us to continue, but I would want for us to push this conversation online using the hashtag Arusha Debates. Let's keep this conversation going. And I really know that you would want to give your views, your opinion, but I apologize, we are pressed for time, and Rice,
all right.
Jakaya Kikwete also has so many things he would like to do. So can we please beg that we wind this up with closing remarks from Ms. McKenna Mobobia, who will be shortly giving a few closing remarks, but that is going to be after our panelists have also said their closing remarks. I don't know if we still have them online.
Yeah, we have them online, Joy. But
Right.
we have a very important announcement and some reflections from the Secretary General of the ESC. You're welcome, Doc. Before we come to the closing remarks, I've just been informed by Ivan that you have, something.
From here. This actually should have come actually as the final message, but it's okay. It's only that I was reminding that tomorrow is an important day, Your Excellency, because much is, of course, this is very exciting about Arusha Debates. Also tomorrow about Arusha Peace Forum. Yeah, that comes in the morning. And yourself being an expert in this and being a champion of peace in our region and in Africa. This is something that is coming tomorrow. It will be addressed by the Vice President of Burundi, who will be addressing the forum tomorrow. But also in the afternoon, we'll be having the First Lady of the Republic of Rwanda, who will be a keynote speaker on gender equality tomorrow at 2 p.m. And then the closure of the summit, Your Excellency, it will be done by Honorable Kassim Majaliwa, who is the Prime Minister of the United Republic of Tanzania, who will be basically representing Her Excellency, the President, Samia Suluhu Hassan. So tomorrow is equally a very exciting day. So I think this is information that Ivan had said I should say,
right,
so that excites you to come tomorrow. Yeah?
Okay.
Have as many people as well come.
Thank you
very much.
All right, we have our panelists online, and I can see Dr. Alex Awiti. Dr. Alex and Mr. Mustafa Njie from the Gambia. Dr. Alex Awiti is in Kenya. And we also have Mr. Zephanier, who is from the Rwanda Development Board in Rwanda. And he's, and I think we also had Dr. Joy, but I don't know if she's still online. But anyway, we've brought this to a close. I'm sure you can feel the energy in the room. And I hope that we can take this momentum and carry it into the Arusha Debates 2022. That when we come here, we're really going to come here with formidable solutions, homegrown solutions to our own challenges. So I want to start with Dr. Alex Awiti. If you may, how do you think our young innovators can turn this opportunity we have at hand into something magical for us going forward? How do we build forward transformatively as a continent? Dr. Alex Awiti.
Thank you very much, Joy. I think at the risk of saying something that has been said many times, I think Africa's future is in the present. And that present is the youthful population. I think what is critical is how do we align all the resources that then create an ecosystem of opportunity that harnesses the energy, that basically taps into the ingenuity, that basically speaks to everything about leaving no youth behind. So it's about marshalling all our resources to create an education system that is both flexible, open, and agile. That young people can get in and out of education, get the education they need, and get the skills that they need to do what they need to do. And if they need to come back, they come back. So I think it's really recalibrating the architecture of education. The future of Africa is more hopeful. and more youthful than any other landmass in the world. And I think if you're talking about opportunity, this is what it is. If you're talking about a hopeful story, if you talk about not putting Africa down, looking into Africa's future, this is it. It consists in the hands and the collective capacity of our youth. The question that we need to ask is, are our governments, policymakers, development partners, and the Pan-African organizations aligning and creating those critical steps that build this ecosystem for youth to succeed? I think this is the existential question. This is the elephant in the room. It's really how do we harness collectively a will that then creates that pipeline into the future. But I think what we also have to think about is who thinks for Africa? Who thinks for our countries? You know, you and I know that a lot of the policies that we are executing, especially the field ones, are usually hand-me-down policies from the World Bank, from IMF, from the UN system, et cetera, et cetera. There's not a lot of Africans in the business of thinking for the continent. And the energy, the palpable energy that is coming from this group is the youth are ready to step into that role, to basically help to create the incredible African think tank that enables us to begin to move from what they like to call theory to practice. But it's also important that we need to theorize about things. We need to test hypotheses. So theory is not necessarily a bad thing, because you cannot leap to actual practical solutions if you haven't thought hard about it. So let's not come out of this discussion saying that we should end debates and conversation and contestation of ideas and substitute those for thoughtless, mindless action. So I think the ingenuity in the innovation is really to create a thought process, to create a think tank and a basis for advancing credible African solutions that we then test with real data in the field in terms of deployment towards creating sustainable solutions, especially to harness the energy of the youth of the continent. Over to you, Joy.
So thank you. And now handing over to Mr. Mustafa Njie, Youthman, also known as Youthman. How do we make this magic happen? Because you talked about the missing link. We've tried to find certain connections to it. Now, can we fix the problem going forward? Let's build back. I don't want to say build back, scratch that. Build forward transformatively. How do we build forward transformatively, briefly?
Thank you very much, Joy. I would advise that the youth should move away from this issue of entitlement. I mean, about 31 years ago, I started doing exactly what these young people are doing. I mean, going into conference halls, you know, the same problem that you were saying existed, and probably with less opportunities. Then we never had the internet, and imagine what happened. We still survived. So entitlement is a word that I want you to erase from your vocabulary. Asking for what your government can do for you, what those who are older than you can do for you, but see the world as a game of football. In the game of football, soccer, you go for the ball. So I would advise the youth that are there that in order for them to solve this problem, it must be done in a teamwork, but you go for the ball. I interact with a lot of youth, obviously, but I see a lot of entitlement. But remember, all of us were at your age at one time. But if we were successful, it's because we took risk. You must take risk, collective risk. You must, again, listen to advice. Somebody spoke about being experienced. But the reason why you want that experience is because you want to deal with somebody that has done it before and learn from that mistakes, be innovative and move on. Every time I am in forums like this, I mean, I have different acronym for leadership because one of Africa's biggest problems is leadership. So please, as you live today, please remember that you need to develop as youth key values. And that's one of the major problems that we have as Africans. Be it a youth or somebody older at my age, leadership is the issue. So please take this acronym with you, what I call ICE faithship. And I would want you to inculcate these values wherever you are. One is integrity. Two is commitment. E is empathy. So that's eyes. And faith, futuristic vision. And then accountability, decision-making, empowerment. That's faith. And then C is with a double C, confidence, good communicator, honesty, innovation, and passion. If you cannot get all these 12 values, make sure you get a majority of it. And as entrepreneurs, as leaders, young leaders, if you embrace yourself with this value, you're bound to succeed. So again, thank you very much for hosting me on this debate. And I'm sure I'll meet one of you, but I'll meet you guys one day physically, probably next year in the next debates. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mustafa Njie. He is one of Africa's most successful property developers and also the president and CEO of Tough Africa Global.
All right. Let's have closing remarks from Mr. Zephanie from Rwanda, the Rwanda Development Board. Where do we go from here? Is he there though?
Do we have Mr. Zephania?
Okay.
All right. I think we lost him online, but probably, are we going to be able to? No, I think he's not online. Okay, but thank you either way for the views shared earlier in regard to the ease of doing business. So would also like to hear from His Excellency Balozi Dan Kazungu, who is the High Commissioner of Kenya to the United Republic of Tanzania. Let him also share a perspective on this. How do we move forward? And I know that Solomon talked about the regional trade disputes that we have, and I'm told there are about 64 disputes between Kenya and Tanzania. And so many between Kenya and Uganda. I think there are over 70 and 46 were resolved or something. So if we look at the continental perspective, there's so many disputes that we really have to solve. And we're looking for solutions. We're looking for solutions to our own challenges. Let's talk about fixing them.
Thank you, Joy. Thank you, Joy, for this opportunity. But before I speak, of course, I want to acknowledge the presence of His Excellency President Jakaya Mrisho Kikwete. Thank you, sir, for gracing this very important occasion. And thank you, Katibu Mkuu, my brother, Dr. Madhuki, for hosting all of us. Thank you so much for this. Joy, you raised a very important point. Listening to what you're saying, my takeaway is one, there's an underlying theme of breaking barriers. And breaking barriers at the continental level through the team. Okay. All right. Technology. So the underlying point I'm seeing here is about the issue of breaking barriers. Starting at the continental level through the good effort that you're doing, excellent work that you're doing at the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, but also our brother Kalisa here working very hard at the East African region, trying to ensure that the businesses are at the forefront of our transformation and breaking barriers around that. And the EAC, under the leadership of Dr. Madhuki, is doing a great job trying to convince so many of our leaders here in Arusha. And I think this week we'll be seeing a lot of that effort towards breaking barriers, ensuring that we continue prospering. But also where we're coming is the issue and the important issue around country-to-country relations, what we call bilateral. So there's the continental segment, there's the regional segment, whether you're talking East Africa Community or ECOWAS or the Maghreb or the SADC, but there's a very important element about country-to-country relationship. And that's where I really want to focus on, the bilateral. countries do have framework of how they engage. And His Excellency President Mrisho Kikwete is a very prominent diplomat, having served as Foreign Affairs Minister. He understands this very well. Joint Commission, the cooperation agreement. We need, that's where we need to play, whether as diplomats or different actors. I'll give the example between Kenya and Tanzania. While we do have robust engagement at the EAC level, we've been having challenges between Kenya and Tanzania, as you may know. And guess what? By March this year, we had 64 barriers to trade between these two countries. It took days and weeks to cross products to Nairobi and vice versa. And guess what? After just 90 days of sitting at the highest level, we resolved 46 of those issues. Today, the only things that are remaining are only administrative issues. And you talk about the issue about bureaucracies from our institutions, and that's a real issue. So the only thing we are battling right now is KRA, TRA, TBS, those kind of things. But otherwise, there's a very important factor there that countries can work together to resolve these barriers, if there's goodwill, of course. And I think it's the same whether you talk about Uganda and Rwanda, or Algeria and Morocco, or any other country for that matter. So there's that component which I think as diplomats, as actors, we need to work very hard to ensure that we help our countries and help our region, help the continent, to ensure that piece of the puzzle is also worked on. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Balozi, for those remarks as well. And, after, when you said after 90 days of sitting, after 90 days, that's 3 months, Solomon, 3 months. After 90 days of sitting, 46 disputes were settled of the 64. And I think that maybe we need to think about how easier it could be when we have dialogue, as opposed to when we are constantly working against each other or pulling each other apart. So if after 90 days we can have 46 of 64 disputes resolved, how do you think it would look if we had more dialogue? I think we'd probably be able to work even much better, right?
Thank you. Let me add one more thing, by the way. President Samia Suluhu Hassan was here last month inspecting projects here. And what she said was very fundamental. That she says after 6 months of working at the Kenya-Tanzania relations and fixing barriers to trade, guess what? Tanzania's business has grown 6 times. Tanzania's export to Kenya has grown 6 times in 6 months. And for the first time in decades, the balance of trade between Kenya and Tanzania is in Tanzania's favor. Tanzania is selling more to Kenya now than we are selling to Tanzania. I mean, why are we doing these things when it's to our advantage? So I think there's a lesson there that we tend to bring these issues, which, by the way, alternatively, ultimately, they disadvantage our own people and our own economies. And we're here saying we need to create jobs for our people, and this is one way of doing that. Thank you so much, dear father.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Balozi Dan Kazungu, for those remarks. And indeed, thank you all to our panelists, our speakers, who have been with us right from the beginning. A round of applause.
Let's give them a round of applause. And a special thank you to our online audience as well,
Yes.
that has been with us from the time that we began. Thank you very much. Your views and thoughts have been considered. And a special thank you to our guest of honor and the entire team for spending this whole time with us, Joy.
Yeah.
It's really been great. Can we give them some love, guys?
Hey, okay, maybe you need tea to be able to clap properly. You just give a big round of applause. And even to ourselves for really being fired up about this conversation, yeah? I want to say a big thank you to each and everyone who took part in making this happen. And of course, the Arusha Debates have been a joint initiative of the MSTCDC and also in partnership with the EABC, East Africa Business Council, as well as the East African Community Secretariat, and the Jakaya Kikwete Foundation as well. and other partners who have played a role here and there to make the Arusha debates happen. These are the inaugural debates, or this is the inaugural debate, and we look forward to having even more debates such as these going forward, so we can have regional, continental, global solutions to our challenges.
Great. Let's close this up. Let's now invite Ms. Makena Mobobia, who is the Executive Director of the Training Center for Development Corporation, MSTCDC, to come and give her closing remarks. Ma'am, you're very welcome.
All right.
Rice.
Your
Excellency
Rice.
Rice.
The patron.
Before she
Sorry
speaks.
about that.
Okay.
Yeah, because you
Sorry
can't
about
speak after
her.
after she has made her speech.
Okay, great.
I just wanted to say two things. One, I'm so happy. I'm so happy to see young people have become the young people that I know. The young people that has the energy, the young people that can speak out, can express their views. So I really enjoyed this kind of debate. So I think the Arusha Debates has started well. And I think these are important lessons for those in organizing this one, to see how to organize it better next year. I think it's a good thing, and let it continue. It's just the beginning. Let it be organized better, so that we can have even more vibrant discussions. It is simply a question of time. How much time do we have? So that more and more of the young men and women in this hall can also have the opportunity, because I'm sure many are going home complaining that I would have spoken, but the moderators have not been so kind to me. So I think that's the lesson to take next time. I just wanted to mention two things. One thing, it is with regards to GDP growth rates, my experience. You know, what is important, what is the other side of the GDP growth rates is the composition, the structure of that growth. Indeed, for example, during my time, the GDP Tanzania grew at an average of 7%. That's why we got into these numbers, and it continued. It started with President Mkapa, we continued with it. But one thing that struck me is that as the economy was growing at 7%, poverty reduction rate was at 2%, which meant that that growth of the economy did not translate into changing, it did not trickle down as much, and so the poverty reduction rate remains quite low. Then I was sitting with my economic team and I was saying, why is this the case? Since President, let's look at the structure of what makes the 7%. Internet, mobile phone penetration, 25%. Financial intermediation, 16%. I'm just mentioning the numbers. Manufacturing, 9%. Transit trade, 14%. Now, these are, I'm just mentioning the random numbers, not the exact numbers. But look at the growth of the sector that employs the majority of the people, agriculture. Growth rate is between 4 and 5%. And economists are saying that if an economy grows at 7% over a decade, the GDP doubles. That's precisely what has happened to Tanzania. So when the agricultural sector does not grow at a fast rate as the other sectors. And this is the sector that employs the majority of the people. The rate of poverty reduction is minimal, because this is where the majority of the poor are. So I'm mentioning this because we may take a lot of pride in the rates of growth, but we should not lose sight of what is it that makes up on that growth. Because if we can really delineate the sectors. And so if we can have the agricultural sector grow as fast as the others, it will translate into reduction of poverty. And that is where Africa's problem really lies. There's a lot of growth, but the sector that people depend on is not growing as fast as it should. And this is where that's why, of course, during my time, we took a number of these measures, Kilimo Kwanza and so on, tried to transform the agricultural sector. It has not been easy transforming the agricultural sector as well, but I wanted just to mention, to take note of that we should not take pride in looking at the general numbers, but we should also look at the structure of that growth. It says a lot in translating into reduction of poverty level, because our biggest problem in Africa is high levels of poverty. And we have got to, and growth of the economy has to tackle that problem. But if the growth is on transit trade, financial intermediation, which benefits the banks, and if it is mobile phone penetration, which benefits the mobile phone companies, and it does not touch the people themselves, that's this. The other is a quotation I want to leave it with you. Today I gave you one, was we produce what we don't consume and consume what we don't produce. The next one is from Amilcar Cabral. In his book, Amilcar Cabral was the leader of the party called PAIGC, Party for the Independence of Guinea-Bissau and Cape Verde. In his book, The Guinea Revolution, in this chapter, The Weapon of Theory, he says, theory without practice is empty, and practice without theory is blind. I leave that with you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mheshimiwa Rais, for those quotes. One,
theory without practice is empty, and practice without theory is blind. So we've been talking a lot about theory today. So know that if you have a theory and you don't practice it, it's just empty. But if you go into practice without a theory, that is blindness. You don't know where you're going to end up. Okay, so that's the quote for today.
thank you. Thank you very much. A round of applause for Mheshimiwa Rais. The first quote was, we consume what we don't produce and produce what we don't consume.
The second one is, theory without practice is what?
Empty.
Empty.
Is empty.
And practice without theory is?
Blind.
Blind. Mheshimiwa, thank you very much, Rais.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And put it into perspective, we consume what we don't produce and... Okay, I'm confused now. we consume what we don't produce and produce what we don't consume. It goes into our resources as well, our mineral resources, and also our cash crops. You know, we export coffee. Most of our coffee is exported. We don't drink coffee as much as we export it, and we export most of our produce in raw form. We don't transform them to a finished product. That is a challenge that we have that we need to transform as well.
We produce cotton.
Yep.
And export the cotton.
Right.
And then we buy shirts made of cotton.
And we
there are so many of those examples.
Certainly. Thank you very much. Over to you, ma'am.
Honorable Kikwete, my friend. Now I can call you my friend. After I had the traditional food yesterday, I was amazed when I think one of the young parliamentarians asked you, most of the presidents, when they retire, things happen, but you're growing younger. And oh yeah, I can say that because I can see. and then you challenged us and said you're even starting with gym, but also what goes in the mouth is what you're watching. And this statement today has kind of taken me back, and I want us to do an exercise because I believe change starts with an individual. We are here from last week. I'm coming to the boot camp, and why we are here today is because we believe there's something not right with Africa. And I think one of the speakers said, reclaiming our dignity. So I was asking myself, how did it first of all disappear? So we are just starting the journey. It has not even started. Then all protocols observed. Oh, please, I keep forgetting that. All protocols, my ambassador. I will do all that. Let me start with a story so that I come back to what am I supposed to be doing? Okay, I'll find out. So after Mheshimiwa spoke and said we produce what we don't consume and consume what we don't produce. Over lunch, we had a very heated debate about cocoa in Africa. And we realized that what has been spoken for Dr. Rima is the truth, because we were saying that we produce for others, then we receive back. And one time I happened to go to a supermarket in Europe, and there was still eaten, made in UK. And I looked at my friend, I said, I didn't know London produces coffee. Lipton, so many others, coffee, the story goes on. Now then I went back when I was a younger girl. In school, we used to say, buy Kenya, build Kenya. Squared. We don't say that anymore. I don't know what happened. Now then, when we were much younger activists, there was a delegation which was preparing to go to discuss the WTO, the World Trade Organization negotiations and that. And the issue that time was about cotton as a raw material from Africa. And the first speaker said, and this is the exercise I want us to do, the first speaker who came to be very annoyed that we have refused to buy what we are making in Africa said, looked at himself, and he paused for a moment and said, please, and this is now the exercise, including Mheshimiwa, just look at what you're wearing, and just think what is the label here, made in where? Just, you don't have to shout, but I'm just saying this is a conscious exercise that we want to do. Joyce kind of tried to, take us back home. For me, I was thinking that is taking us back home. Then I finished with a story. My father was an administrator, and a friend of his sent his friend to London to buy him a suit. And after his friend came back, gave back the suit with a receipt, and beautiful suit. And within a week's time, the two friends were fighting because the suit had a label made in Kenya, Livertex, but was bought in London. I'm not saying anything, I'm just saying. And these two friends were like, why did you cheat me? You must have gone to River Road, he bought the suit and they pocketed my money. I'm just trying to kind of rewind things for us. And then the unfortunate bit, the beautiful African kitenge. I'm wearing one today. But if you go to the market, which kitenges are you finding? Kitenge made in China. I'm not saying anything, I'm just saying the reality. So what am I taking home? How are we closing this? And this is why I'm saying, oh yeah, that one I didn't even want to go that direction because it's annoying. The chondo, the nice African basket has a patent from Japan. And I keep asking, yes, I beat you. You said you're an investigative journalist. I beat you to that. And so why today I am so happy. I'm talking in low voice because today I'm challenged. And I want to be part of the change. And I don't know if Richard is still online because he said you like 3 hours where we don't have any negative energies. Sometimes we need the negative energies to even annoy us so that we can take the decision. We need to be annoyed to be able to take the actions. And this is what I think we are heading to now. There's a time I remember I had a boss who was saying, think global but act local. Because we are connected now, the world is connected. As much as we are saying we need Africa, we are connected. So we understand ourselves, we understand what we want, we understand how we want to negotiate. That is thinking local. Then now come into the global market with the pride that we need. And that is why I think one of the speakers said that we must change the way we are doing business. We can't keep exporting our raw materials forever. Time has come. I know that is difficult, it is complicated, but it can be done because now we have a free trade agreement that is giving us a platform to do that. I want to say what I'm taking home as closing for us. We're just closing the session, not the week. The week is full, and I want to tell the young people, tomorrow, Thursday, Friday is still set up for us. Those of you who have not spoken, there's still a lot of time to speak. And from yesterday, I've been amazed by the number of young people under 40s that have been here telling us how we can change things. So that also take learnings from us. So we are saying African solutions for African problems. Look at the minds in this room. This is the journey we are starting today. If we are reclaiming our dignity, there are some things we must stop doing. The incompetencies that we talked about, I think in my simple language, my friend, you must have been talking about corruption, but you wanted to give it a name that is acceptable, but corruption is corruption, be it small or big. And I think it's also time that our governments also start taking serious actions on that. And who doesn't know what is happening? There is a time I was going again travel, and somebody said, "What are you coming to do in my country?" I said, "My organization has sent me." And then they asked me, "And why are they sending you?" I said, "By the way, sir, if I had an opportunity, I would not be in your country. Then I'm going to a different country, and the next thing somebody is telling me is that, you know, do you have smaller denominations of the dollars so that I can have tea as you cross to my country?" So that is what you're calling. But I think we need to call it out, and I was quite impressed that we have SMSs that we can send, but also sometimes information is difficult to access. We don't know where the information is, how to access it, and how we can use it. And I think that is what is going to happen on Thursday, is that we are going, the young people are going to be consolidating the actions that have been agreed upon from yesterday, today, tomorrow. And so those resolutions are going to build the program, because you remember yesterday, Petron, we said we are not going to be a summit, but a platform, because those are the things that we are taking. We said we are not going to be a summit, but a forum, because we are becoming actually a program, and you know that program will need the resources to make it happen. So we are still saying, calling upon our friends, to be able to enable us to reach out. People are saying, go to the village. We need to understand when you are leaving Arusha on Friday, then remember you are the change that is crossing the border to start that change wherever you are based. I think if we agree that each of us is going to be part of that change, then as we meet here again next year, then we should be triple the numbers or even celebrating actions that have already been implemented. One of the things, and I think Petron allowed me to say this, as we were discussing, from yesterday, education has been discussed. And so one of the proposals that the Petron actually has proposed as we were seated there, we have agreed today Arusha Debates are actually going to be the engine for moving not East Africa, but Africa. So we want first of all to appreciate my friend, Honorable John Mogera, who has really been pushing this Arusha Debates. But you can see now, you have made the point, and what we are discussing is that now it is going beyond Arusha, it is going Pan-African, and so we were discussing that it lies under the East Africa community, so that then Mheshimiwa is able to help us push the member states and across board. But we want to say definitely you should be very proud, Mheshimiwa, because now Arusha is in the global map and the global site. It will never remain the same. I think you've accomplished it with just the first debate, and I think we can celebrate. So this is excellent. And of course, recognizing the strategic thoughts from Honorable Kikwete and the push by the SG. So we want to say this Arusha debate, for me, for those of us who have ever had the opportunity of Davos, you can say it's definitely different. This is Africa for Africa, and that's the way we want to remain it. For it to remain, we take the feedback to make it better. So then we are saying for next, we are preparing education and the training skills, because the key question is the education system for Africa really preparing us for skills that we need for industrialization within Africa and for trade? And so we want to think that the next debate, Ivan picked this, that we need to look around the education, the training. My friend from Kenya has talked about TVET, and I think you can tell that is the thing that is hurting. So without really going far, I just want to quickly finish and say proudly, standing here, I feel that we are actually quite vibrant, because last week was successful from the boot camp, and I want to ask the boot campers to stand. The young people who spent the week at the campus, kindly quickly stand, and if faculty is here, and wait, are you shy to stand and say you are the reason I feel, you are the reason that the Arusha debates have been this vibrant? Don't take it for granted, pick it from there. You are given the homework in the morning. Next debate should be fed by you. You will be the people in the panel to tell us where we are. So boot campus, thank you very much for giving us that foundation. So let me finish by saying thank you, can sit, and I just wanted to say that yes, the next debate, it will be around education, skills, industrialization, and in the morning then we looked at the app that was launched in the morning, Skills Match. I think that is all talking to that. So let me just finish with my last point, and this is the mindset. This mindset, Mheshimiwa, I don't know how you will help us, because if for years people have told you are not good, but now you realize you are better, or maybe even better than them, How do I start that journey of believing in myself? Because the mindset of Africa that we produce for others, the mindset that we must borrow, what is from what we must eat, what is produced out and not what is our own. How do we reclaim our dignity? So that point starts with you. If you can believe in the expertise that you have seen yesterday and today, that this is Africa for Africa, I believe that is the mindset we are talking about. So I want to challenge each and every one of us to be able to be the change for the mindset. And for the young people, work has been cut for you. I know we are very young parliamentarians here. I know my daughter from Kenya, let me tell my daughter from Kenya, that 30%, we have to fight it. And it's not about the continental free trade, because also when you go to the constitution, we talk about 30%. I don't know who decides this 30%, I'm also asking. Because if you go to the constitution of Kenya, it says, a third, not gender, those things. And then the implementation becomes the problem. And when we are just about to succeed, we bring something on the table to confuse, and then we forget the focus. So once we start this journey, let not anything distract us. Thank you, Mheshimiwa. Let not anything distract us when we start. Because you will always realize when your enemy realizes you are just about to win, they will do something that will disrupt you, so that you start something else and forget where you are. So let us be clear what we are starting. We are not going to stop until the Continental Free Trade Agreement works for Africa. We will ask our leaders in Africa to love one another. I keep hearing Solomon say, give me love. So let's give each other love. And yesterday, somebody asked me, which country are you from? I said, I'm from Africa. That is how I want to feel. I want to feel an Africa that is boundless, an Africa that is united because we want to succeed. So let me stop there, because I know young is called young man. So I was asking, maybe I'll also start my hashtag young woman, so that, yes, that's what age is, but a number. There are times when I feel 25. Yes. And Sarah can tell you, when we go walking, Mheshimiwa, I beat them in the walk. So age is but a number. So there are some young people I challenge because they behave like me, my age, and I behave like their age, but we need you. We need you to be as energetic as you are, but to focus your energies on the right things. Do not be disrupted. Do not be cheated. Do not throw stones, but throw the stones where we need to make the change. This is the action we need from you. Let not your parliaments sleep, because that is where policies are made, that is where policies are amended, that is the action we want you to do. We want you to go back and make sure that the Continental Free Trade Agreement is understood even by some of the policy makers who may not have seen it when you have already seen it. Take your position, make things different, make Africa rise, Africans rise. God bless you.
McKenna, before you conclude, I'm just going to be with the youth here on this. At times, the elders use that age is nothing but a number to block our access. So we're checking you.
So that is, those who do not know, Sarah is my programs director. And we tease each other, and Sarah, you can hold me to account on that. But if I used it because I believe in it, that's why I'm telling you, when I do my 10 kilometers run, I ask myself, when were you born? But anyway, so let me stop there by saying there are serious things, and particularly what we need to do. Time is yesterday for us. Time is yesterday for Africa. One day gone, that's a day gone. So let's take advantage of the fact that you're seated in this conference. Be the change for your country. There's nobody else that will be. God bless you all.
Let's give us some love, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much, ma'am. Can we all rise for the East African anthem?
All right. And as we are rising for the East African anthem, we can also stretch out a bit, just a bit, just a bit, just a bit. I'm not playing any music for you, so don't be afraid that you're going to dance. I'm not asking. But it would be nice, though we have a dinner at the MSTCDC venue today,
Oh,
so,
yes. And
which
we
is where
also
we're
have-
going
Yeah,
after
also
here.
we also have a football match over floodlights.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, over floodlights today.
I used to play football.
All right, I can't wait to see you in
In grade school, though. Primary
So
school.
yes, we have a football match at our campus over floodlights. So be sure to join in.
All right. And tomorrow is yet another day. We're going to come here and continue with the ULEAD Summit. ULEAD, do I call it the ULEAD? At MSTCDC, which is going to be the venue for the next following days. So make sure that you wake up on time, okay? And be there on time so we can kick off right on time. So allow me to also express my profound admiration for everyone who has been patient for the inaugural Arusha Debates. You deserve a round of applause. To our patron, His Excellency Jakaya Mrisho Kikwete, for not only being here since yesterday, but for paying attention and for contributing to our discussions, for listening to what young people have to say. And I think this is a challenge to all our East African heads of state to follow suit, to listen to young people, and to be here, present, in person, to participate and take part in these conversations, because they are leading young people. The bigger population are young people. It is
Certainly.
us,
Yeah.
and they need to listen to us. So thank you so much to all of us, and also to our Secretary General of the East African Community Secretariat, and also to our Regional Commissioner, for really bringing all of these minds together and making sure that the Arusha debates come to fruition. Thank you so much. And to each and everyone, MSTCDC and the team of ULEAD that put all of these minds together to bring the Arusha debates to life. Thank you so much. To your excellencies here represented and your representatives, thank you all. And to each and all of you, thank you so much. Thank you.
Can we give ourselves a round of applause? And thank you very much, Your Excellency. As we wait for the anthem, I hope it's set. He loves young people. I have a personal story. When I was a young man doing journalism, and I think, Your Excellency, you don't remember, you came to Kololo Independence Grounds, and I was reporting live for that event. I think it was the swearing in of the president, Yoweri Museveni. So you came, and
Which
as
term?
you were,
Which term?
I don't remember though. But while you came, I just said, Your Excellency. And I remember you were walking with the head of state, and you stopped and said, come, young man, come. I'm like, huh? Whole head of state is calling me. And I came and just asked you a few questions like, okay, good, thank you, bye. That meant to me, years on, I still remember that. So thank you so much for loving young people. And thank you for painting a picture that being a head of state is about service. Yeah, you've showed that to us. That's why we love you. Thank you very much for everything. Can we give His Excellency a round of applause? Woo.
So thank you, really. We can't say thank you enough, but at least I'm sure if you could look at our hearts, you'd probably see how big the thank you is. So let's now be upstanding for our East African Community Anthem. East African Community Anthem.
Franklin, can you come and sing the anthem, please? Franklin? Franklin? come and lead us in the East African. Okay.
Afrika Mashariki, tuwezeshe kuishi kwa amani, tutimize na malengo yetu. Jumuiya yetu sote tuilinde, tuajibike, tuimarike. Umoja wetu ni nguzo yetu, idumu jumuiya yetu. Uzalendo pia mshikamano viwe msingi wa umoja wetu, na tulinde uhuru na amani, mila zetu na desturi zetu. Jumuiya yetu sote tuilinde, tuajibike, tuimarike. Umoja wetu ni nguzo yetu, idumu jumuiya yetu. Viwandani na hata mashambani, tufanye kazi sote kwa makini, tujitoe kwa hali na mali, tuijenge jumuiya bora. Jumuiya yetu sote tuilinde, tuajibike, tuimarike. Umoja wetu ni nguzo yetu, idumu jumuiya yetu.